presented by me, Tanya Beckett, produced by Bob Howard, researched by Maeve Schaffer, and edited by Tara McDermott. The studio manager was Craig Boardman.
That was The Inquiry from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho here on CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We are just getting set and live and ready for the show in downtown Winnipeg. Thanks for joining us on the morning show. We're on the air with you until 8:37 a.m. here on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on that app and on the CBC YouTube stream as well. Let's say good morning to the team. Hello, Sierra Sanders, doing a bang-up job. Sierra's our show director. She's also going to be on the air covering the commute. Good morning, Mr. Abby Adeyemi, always excellence behind the controls. Our senior tech, Abby, also covers weather on the air. And the amazing Dylan Longhurst joins the team this morning. Dylan is producing our YouTube stream this morning if you're watching this show. The equally excellent Heather Wells also joins us. It's 3 minutes to 6 o'clock. Heather is live in our news center. She has the day's news headlines and developments on all kinds of stories. So, Heather, what are you leading with today?
Good morning. Yes. Well, excitement at the thought of going home has turned into disappointment by a delay for wildfire evacuees from Tatasqueat Cree Nation. Just hours after that community lifted the evacuation order, a new state of emergency has been declared because of water treatment plant malfunctions in the community. We'll hear exactly what's been going on there and what it means for people who were getting ready to return home. And Progressive Conservative leader Avi Khan is asking Premier Rob Canoe to call a by-election in Spruce Woods as soon as possible. Khan says Canoe is taking too long. That Southwest Manitoba constituency has been without an MLA since March. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
In the weather forecast today, I'll just mention that we do have a chance we'll see some thunder showers or storms this afternoon. Our high in Winnipeg 25 will start mainly sunny. Similar to Brandon, mix of sun and cloud late this morning and this afternoon, a 60% chance of showers or a thunderstorm. And then in Thompson, no rain in sight, a mix of sun and cloud for you and a straight ahead forecast with 14 degrees as your daytime high. Well, if you are a hiker, you've probably heard that the legendary Mantario Trail is closed indefinitely. That's after wildfires spread over a significant portion of the trail. We're going to talk to a trail runner about that loss. We also have all these comments that we're going to share because it means a lot to a lot of Manitobans. In addition, in the program this morning, was the G7 a success? We'll have some analysis of that right out the gate. And then we're going to get into the idea of sick notes as Doctors Manitoba is asking the province to eliminate the requirements.
On Q.
I'm Talia Schlanger sitting in for Tom Power. Joshua Jackson first hit it big over 20 years ago as a teen heartthrob on Dawson's Creek.
Came looking for an apology, you're barking up the wrong tree.
But his latest role relies just on the power of his voice. He'll tell you about narrating a new audio series.
These details are my subconscious's way of telling me I'm dreaming.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. The world is waiting to see if U.S. President Donald Trump will enter the conflict between Israel and Iran. Right now, Israel's military says it has begun another wave of attacks on the Tehran area. And Iran's ambassador to the United Nations says his country will respond without restraint.
And at any time, at any point, if we come to the conclusion that the United States is directly involved in attacks against Iran, we will start responding to the United States.
Iran's foreign minister says if Washington gets involved, it will cause an all-out war in the Middle East. Our senior international correspondent, Margaret Evans, is in Jerusalem with the latest.
An Israeli military handout showing one of its fighter jets being prepped for a mission in Iran. More explosions there, recorded overnight. This morning, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, believed to be in hiding, issued a statement saying Iran will show no mercy in its response to Israeli attacks. The headlines in the Middle East continue to speculate as to whether the U.S. President Donald Trump will or won't become directly involved in what Israel describes as a preemptive strike against Iran's nuclear capabilities. Michael Oren is a former Israeli ambassador to Washington.
He likes a winner, and right now we're winning. And as long as they're winning, I think he'll be very supportive.
Israeli cabinet ministers have also been issuing not so subtle hints about regime change as a potential goal.
The Prime Minister several times, not just during this conflict, but in earlier years, has come out and called on the Iranian people to rise up. This is the opportunity to overthrow an oppressive government.
There is no love lost between many Iranians and the Ayatollahs who govern the Islamic Republic with extreme repression. But regional experts, including Rened Mansour, warn against making assumptions.
Do you say, yes, please bomb us if this means democracy and a better life? Haven't we learned that democracy and better development doesn't come through weapons and military solutions?
There is little obvious sign, however, of a diplomatic solution anywhere in sight. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Jerusalem.
The conflict between Israel and Iran is causing infighting among the MAGA faithful. Trump posted on social media a demand for Iran's unconditional surrender. Many people inside his party and beyond are worried about the country getting involved in another conflict. The CBC's Karen Pauls joins me now from Washington. And Karen, what can you tell us?
Well, this conflict is exposing that deep rift between conservatives on military action. Israel doesn't have a weapon capable of taking out Iran's nuclear site, but the U.S. does. Here are Republican Senators Josh Hawley, Rand Paul, Jim Risch, and Tommy Tuberville.
I trust the president on this. And I'm hoping the president will not get involved with the war. This is not our war. This is Iran's war.
Don't panic and hope we all make the right decision when it comes down to it.
The debate got heated when conservative commentator Tucker Carlson interviewed Republican Senator Ted Cruz. He posted a preview on X that's going viral, the full show airing today.
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay,
it's not even. You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
don't know anything about the country.
Cruz is accusing Carlson of playing a silly game. In his own social media post, writing, Trump has been fantastic in saying Iran will not get a nuclear weapon. Meanwhile, Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is warning that any U.S. involvement would fracture Trump's MAGA support across the country. She says Americans want cheap gas, groceries, bills and housing, affordable insurance, safe communities, and good education for their children, not going into another foreign war. Meanwhile, the Democrats are still pushing for a diplomatic path. Marcia?
Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Karen Pauls in Washington. The U.S. government is extending the deadline of a TikTok ban for a third time. U.S. President Donald Trump is expected to sign the executive order this week. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says Trump does not want to see the video sharing app go dark in the U.S. In April, Trump signed an order to keep TikTok running. A deal to sell it to American owners fell through. The new extension will last for 90 days. The G7 summit is over and world leaders are leaving Kananaskis, Alberta. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky did not leave the summit empty-handed, but he was looking for more support written into the leader's statement. The CBC's Murray Brewster has more on what Canadian officials have to say about that.
This was discussed by all 7 leaders.
Prime Minister Mark Carney clarifying what went on behind closed doors as G7 leaders discussed what to say about Ukraine. Curiously, as the summit closed, there was no separate joint statement from leaders about the situation in Eastern Europe. Instead, Carney referenced the country's struggle in his chairman's remarks, hitting all of the points leaders agreed upon.
The recognition of the importance of the initiative of President Trump to achieve a lasting peace. Absolutely agreed. That we are resolute in pursuing all options to maximize pressure on Russia, including financial sanctions. Agreed.
However, officials in Carney's office told Canadian journalists on background that the United States wanted any criticism of Russia watered down in earlier drafts because it would endanger Donald Trump's peace initiative. Those officials later retracted those remarks. Carney, however, in his news conference, hinted that other nations had wanted him to go further in his statement.
There would be things that some of us, Canada included, would say above and beyond what was said in the chair's summary.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, like Donald Trump, left the summit early. Zelensky went home with $4.3 billion in additional Canadian aid, but was hoping for stronger support from the G7. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Banff, Alberta.
A Nova Scotia woman has settled a lawsuit she filed against the federal government. Lisa Adams spent more than 2 weeks in extreme solitary confinement. She first shared her story with CBC 4 years ago. Corrections officers at Truro, Nova Scotia prison wrongly accused her of hiding drugs in her vagina. She spent 16 days locked in a dry cell with no toilet or running water. A Nova Scotia Supreme Court ruled in 2021 that Adams' constitutional rights had been violated. It ordered Ottawa to amend a section of the federal corrections legislation that discriminates against women. The federal government later introduced regulations to limit an inmate's time in dry cell detention. Adams' lawyer says he can't disclose the details of the settlement. There's still no trace of 2 young siblings who disappeared in Pictou, Nova Scotia. It's been more than 6 weeks, and police are not saying much about what may have happened, other than they have no evidence that suggests the children were abducted. The CBC's Kayla Hounsell is following the story.
I know somebody out there knows where they're at.
Belinda Gray is pleading for information about the whereabouts of her grandchildren, Lily and Jack Sullivan, 6 and 4 years old, missing from their rural Nova Scotia home since Friday, May 2nd.
Are you able to authorize and start getting some search teams going?
Radio chatter illustrates search crews and first responders mobilizing.
A lot of area to cover. We're out in the sticks here.
For an exhaustive search that would run a total of 12,000 hours. Police say they did find a boot print believed to be child-sized.
It's quite rare. In my career, I've never seen 2 missing children go at the same time.
The RCMP's Corporal Guillaume Tremblay maintains there is no evidence to suggest the children were abducted. More than 50 people have been interviewed. Gray says her son, the children's biological father, has been questioned 3 times.
A couple of days ago, they had contact and they told him that they weren't looking his way anymore, that everything was fine.
As she clings to cherished keepsakes.
This is Lily's handprint.
She says she does feel the support of the community and beyond.
These are everybody's grandchildren. They're not just mine now.
She says she doesn't have much hope the children will be found alive, and even worries the mystery of what happened to them may never be solved. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Lansdowne Station, Nova Scotia.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. If you like the World Report podcast, please follow us and tell a friend. It helps spread the word. I'm Marcia Young.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg, and you are with CBC to start your Wednesday morning. Thanks for being here on 89.3 FM on the app or YouTube. Well, this hour is one of my favorite things. Dr. Raj Bhardwaj on the medical column today. It takes questions from kids like, how do your eyeballs stay in your head? Or how do your voices sound differently on video or radio compared to in your own mind, and why does that happen? So stay tuned. We're going to get some of those answers in our medical column, and including what happens if you eat Lego, which the 10-year-old who wrote into the doctor made sure to say that she hasn't done. But what does happen when you eat Lego? In addition, this hour on the show, a lot of people care a great deal about the Ontario Trail. We're going to hear how a trail runner is coping now that the trail is closed indefinitely, and also what the trail means to her. You've been writing into us. Some of you are calling the Ontario a pilgrimage in your lives. So beautiful stories. I'll just read that comment real quickly before we get to Heather Wells and headlines. This came from Jackie Harding Harmacy, who wrote, in the Ontario's a pilgrimage because I got breast cancer in 2020. I was 40, and I started to do these things on my bucket list after that. And I've completed it 3 times. In the Sleeping Giant last year, I was putting together a group of women who've never met to do the Ontario this year. But obviously, sadly, I don't think that's going to happen. So many people talking about the Ontario. We have an interview about it coming up. Right now, now, though, let's go to Heather Wells at 6:11 a.m. this Wednesday, June 18th, and find out what's making news today. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, the lone survivor of a mass shooting in Winnipeg's West Broadway area has died. 56-year-old Sean Marco died earlier this month after getting pneumonia for a third time. He had been in hospital since being shot and critically injured in a rooming house on Langside. In November 2023, 4 other people were killed in that incident. We're going to hear from his sister coming up. And a First Nations health advocate does not approve of the methodology used for a new report on racism in Winnipeg hospital emergency rooms. That report gathered details on the experiences of Indigenous, Black, and South Asian patients. Dr. Barry LaValle says relying on statistics sanitizes the real-life experience of First Nations patients. We'll hear more coming up in our next news at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Abby, I didn't put my cushions in this morning, and it's going to rain.
It is going to rain. We're already seeing rain in Brandon, and we have rain and thunderstorm in Dauphin at this time. It's going to be more like sunshine starting in most regions down south, and then we're seeing cooler temperatures in the north. Possible showers in most of the regions today. In Winnipeg, it's a calm start. We are currently at 16 degrees under mainly sunny conditions outside. Now, as we go through the day, we'll enjoy more sunshine, and by midday, some clouds will roll in. This afternoon brings a good chance of showers in the Red River Valley region, and most regions in the southern part of the province will see highs near 25 degrees. Across board, from Brandon all the way down to Gimli, temperatures this morning, we're seeing 15 and 16 degrees, while up north, we're seeing temperatures between 5 and 7 degrees. Thompson is at 7 right now, Judge Hill at 5.
Right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Abby Adiyemi with our weather forecast, teeing up the day here. Let's get into the commute and start our Wednesday. Hi, Sierra Sanders. How are you?
Good morning. I am not too shabby. Just getting the morning and the show started, so that means the morning commute is getting kicked off as well. As Abby just mentioned, there is some rain falling in the Riding Mountain area, as well as some thunderstorms, so adjust your driving accordingly if you are in that area. If there's anything slowing you down out there, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That's 204-788-3093.
We'll picture boreal forest, Canadian shield, eagles, bears, and blueberries. If you are an avid hiker, as we've been mentioning, you might have seen those things yourself on the Ontario Trail. So the trail runs through Whiteshell Provincial Park. As you know, fires have been raging there, and so it's now indefinitely closed. The trail is because of wildfire damage. Our next guest has not only hiked the trail, she's run it as well, and she's here to talk about what the closure means to her. Renee Desjardins is on the show this morning via Zoom, and thank you so much for joining us live early.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about something and somewhere that I love.
Tell me about your relationship with the Ontario Trail, because I understand that's how you describe it, a relationship with it.
Yeah, so I am not a native Manitoban. I moved to the province from Ottawa almost a decade ago. And one of the ways that I found community and got to know the province was through the wilderness. And the Ontario was one of the first trails that I got acquainted with. So as you said, I've hiked it in all seasons. So fall, summer, winter, spring. And I recently, I guess in the last 5, 6 years, got more into trail running and have also trail ran it. So it's been a friend of mine since I've moved here.
For those that might not know the trail, what's the experience of it? What's it like to run it? Because it's quite a challenge.
Yeah, so I have had the good fortune and privilege of doing a lot of Canadian trails from coast to coast. So the Ontario is definitely a challenge. It is very rugged. So if you think of our national parks and the more, we'll say, manicured trail, the Ontario is not that. So it's a challenge, for anybody who just hikes it or just does a part of it. But certainly trail running, it affords a lot of different topography, a lot of different challenges, from marshy sections to rocky sections. So it's a really great trail to run, but not an easy one.
You're part of a group of women that take to this trail. Tell me a little bit about your group.
Yeah, so I mean, there are a number of really great groups in the province that encourage people to get into the outdoors. So I am a member of the Manitoba Association of Trail Runners, which is not women only. It's open to all genders. It's very inclusive, all levels of trail running, and they do a lot of advocacy work as well, trail maintenance. So I've ran the trail with them, but when I've gone with fellow women, I've gone with another group called, I've talked about the Ontario Trail with another group called Backcountry Women, but I've also done the trail with female friends. So one of my good friends, Julie, and I, we have done the trail together point to point as a self-supported endeavor. So that means nobody's helping us at campsites or at the trailheads. It's just the two of us. And very few women, there's a number of us, but very few women have done it in that way, self-supported point to point in one push. So Julie and I have done that now twice. We did another one night overnight as well. So I guess you could say 3 big pushes on the trail. And definitely a challenge, but a lot of fun. And we're really proud to be part of that exclusive group of women. Well, I shouldn't say exclusive, but small group of women.
Just to interject here, how long does it take to do it tip to tip?
So it really depends on the weather. But for us, when we did it point to point in those 2 pushes, it was around the 17-hour mark.
Wow.
Yeah. And that includes all of our breaks.
Oh, my goodness. How many times have you run the trail, like overall, even, solo or with any group? Like, how many times have you been out there?
So the point to point was twice, but I've done a number of sections of it. So I couldn't even tell you. I've been out there quite a few times.
Who has dubbed the Ontario the Womantario? Which I love, by the way.
So that's my friend Julie and I. That's when we started this project of kind of chipping away and trying to do it point to point. We really wanted to encourage women to get out there, to trust themselves, to not feel like they needed a bunch of support, that they had it within themselves to do it. So we thought if we rebranded the Mantario to the Womantario, that might encourage more women to get out there.
What is it like then, knowing that that this year it's closed due to wildfires, but not only that a lot of the trail actually is gone, has burned, has been affected by this, and at least for the foreseeable future is not going to be reforested?
Yeah, so we know that burn cycles are kind of part of Mother Nature's way of restoring things. However, we also know that climate crisis is a reality. So for me, I think the magnitude of these fires, how rapidly they spread, the damage that they incur, is certainly indicative of climate crisis. And so to lose the special places where we recreate and camp and run and hike is really devastating. It's sad.
What memory do you hold in your mind about the trail? Do you have a specific run or a moment on the trail that I don't know, maybe was beautiful or has stayed with you for some reason?
Yeah, I'll share 2 very short ones. So the first one is I hiked the north part of the trail during a winter in the pandemic when it was permissible to go. And there were these beautiful hoarfrost formations on big white shell, and just incredible. I had never seen anything like it. It just looked like these crystal sculptures. The picture is up on the Ontario Trail Facebook group. And then another memory would be quite a few bear encounters. So those are always a little nerve-wracking.
Tell me about that just for a second, like right in front of you on the trail or following you along? I hope not the latter.
No, following, no, but on our first point to point, so Womantario 2.0, in 2021, Julie and I encountered 2 bears, and the second one that we encountered was actually quite close to us, and it took a while to kind of get him to to leave and clear the way. So lots of yelling, lots of arms up, but we made it through.
Thank you very much for sharing all these beautiful images and also sharing what the trail means to you. You might have heard when we were getting ready to speak, people have been writing to us. I've got all kinds of things to share with folks about what it means to them. So where are you going to go in the meantime, I guess, this summer? Just as a last question, Renee.
So I would encourage listeners to really respect all of the fire bans and trail closures. It's really important to follow those rules. They're there for a reason. So I'm going to take to some city parks. Whittier Park has a little bit of trail. I was just out at Le Barrier, I believe, this weekend on Amisk, which was really nice. So there's some stuff within the city.
Absolutely. We'll enjoy it. Thank you so much for being up early with us and on the air.
Thank you to you.
That's Renee Desjardins. She's our trail runner. Manitoba Association of Trail Runners is part of the group she's with. And yeah, she's right. And I'm glad that she mentioned that and put it so beautifully. It is important to heed these warnings about wildfires and where you should not go still in Manitoba. So we're talking about the Mantario. If you have a memory of your own, I'll share more of these that you've been writing to our producer about. But you can always call us at 788-3205 as the Mantario is going to be closed. What will you miss? Do you have a memory there? 788-3205.
Breaking tonight. Every day.
The tariffs are very good. They're very powerful.
Canadians are always ready when someone else drops the gloves.
We bring context to chaos.
What are the consequences of this action?
We must retaliate.
In our own backyard.
Come on! Plane crash!
And beyond our borders.
It's the scene of an airstrike.
You're gambling with World War III.
Negotiations are ongoing.
From the source you can trust.
It's time to dig deeper into the story.
The National, Canada's newscast. Tonight on CBC.
Well, let's talk about national news and the G7 summit wrapping up. For his assessment of what was achieved, we have reached Rob Russo, Canadian correspondent for The Economist. Good morning.
Hi there. How are you?
I'm well. So I'm going to get right into this. How hopeful should we be that all tariffs on Canada are going to be lifted, especially because we started to hear sort of some talk and then, of course, Donald Trump left the G7?
Well, I think the deadline is a good thing. It's going to act as a propellant. Nothing concentrates the mind of a miscreant like a hanging at dawn or the hot breath of the boss on the back of your neck. But in terms of hopeful, with Donald Trump, where there is talk, there is bewilderment. He says he respects Mark Carney. He turned his Truth Social canons on somebody else this time, Emmanuel Macron. Does he want a deal? He says he wants a deal, but he made a deal with the UK, and it still leaves tariffs on British steel. It lowered the tariffs on British automobiles. So this is a guy who likes tariffs. And no matter what happens, he's made it clear that he still wants to take something out of the hide of Canada. Somehow, his price for participation in ballistic missile defense, or Golden Dome, mysteriously jumped from $61 billion to $71 billion somewhere over Montana aboard Air Force One during his news conference. So we don't know. We do know, though, that there is an accelerant on these talks, and that's probably a good thing. If there's good news or bad news, best to know quickly.
My colleague, our colleague Katie Simpson, CBC's Washington correspondent, was talking about this commitment to a trade deal with Canada within 30 days yesterday. And I thought she was actually, I'm going to totally steal what she said. Now, I want your take on it, Rob, because she was talking about the fact that when Trump comes to talk about trade deals and deadlines, it's almost like it depends who he's focusing on in any given moment, as you alluded to here. And they won't mention Canada unless sort of someone is asked, a reporter asks a question about Canada. So you never really know where we're at in terms of 30 days, 20 days, 35 days. Is that a good thing that sort of if we kind of gently fly under the radar and the leaders remain respectful of one another? I mean, it might be a good thing diplomatically, but I guess I'm wondering how do we continue? How do businesses in this country possibly continue, or an economy possibly continue, as everything is so up in the air all the time with him?
Yeah, I think that's why the 30-day deadline is a good thing. The Prime Minister, Mark Carney, has made it clear that he is determined, resolved to diversify our trade from the United States so that we're not in this position again. But in the meantime, he needs to know how quickly he should be doing that and what help is required for businesses in the event that the tariffs, which are hobbling Canadian industry and really sinking their teeth into the back of Canadian workers right now. He needs to know if they're going to be on or not, because he needs to direct help for industry and people who are affected by that. So the 30-day deadline is a good idea if Trump respects it. And as I said before, when you're dealing with Donald Trump, and I think Katie's absolutely right, you're in the realm of befuddlement. You're in the realm of being bamboozled. You're in the realm of your ballistic missile defense going from 61 billion to 71 billion mysteriously over the period of a few days.
Yeah.
So cross our fingers. That's what we can do.
What was the impact of Trump's exit after the first day on the summit, in your view?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you're a fan of The Office, but when Steve Carell left the office, there was an unmistakable shift in the center of gravity. Same with when Charlie Sheen left 2.5 Men. I didn't like that show as much. But when the only leader who can realistically end the wars in Ukraine and the Middle East leaves the meeting, it has an undeniable impact. No, Donald Trump does not want to be one of the seven dwarfs. He wants to be Snow Orange. And he wasn't going to be able to be Snow Orange if he couldn't control the agenda. And it's probably a good thing for him that he left when he did, because the second day wasn't going to be as pleasant. The other leaders wouldn't have been walking on eggshells.
So I have to interject here, though, because so you're making the presumption then that he did not leave to deal with what's happening with Israel and Iran, that he did not have to leave, that he chose to leave.
I'm saying that he probably has very good reasons now that he's thinking about whether or not he's going to bomb Iran. Those are good reasons for leaving. But the second day wouldn't have been as much fun for him. The leaders wouldn't have walked on eggshells about Ukraine. Zelensky and the other leaders would have pressed him to do more for Ukraine and to bring that war to an end. On the day after, he said that Vladimir Putin was unjustly booted out of the G8 at the time. So it would have been a tough day for him. He would have enjoyed it very, very little, I think.
In our remaining minute, I have to ask about support for Ukraine. Prime Minister Mark Carney announcing a new sanction against Russia and support for Ukraine. How consequential do you think that commitment is?
For Canada, it's really significant. Up until now, we've given $4 billion in direct military aid to Ukraine. The Prime Minister added $2 billion. That's a 50% increase, and the money goes towards drones and ammunition and armored vehicles, and a lot of that money is going to go to Canadian industry to produce those materials. So it's significant, but there's no joint statement on Ukraine from the G7 because of Trump's objections. That's equally significant as well.
Why did Carney, just as a last question, invite Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in your view?
He did it under the auspices of chair of the G7 rather than Prime Minister of Canada inviting the Prime Minister of India to visit. That's a fig leaf. But the real reason is if you're trying to diversify your trade away from the United States, you cannot ignore India and its 1.3 billion people. He needed to do this. We assume that he heard something satisfactory in terms of respecting the independent investigation into the Najjar killing in British Columbia. Because there's an exchange of high commissioners now between the two countries. But I think Canadians were looking for a public recognition that he would respect the independent findings of that criminal investigation. Didn't get it from Modi, but we got a strong signal from the Prime Minister that he heard it.
All right, Rob, thank you. Enjoy your reruns of The Office with Steve Carell. I certainly know that show. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. That's Rob Russo, Canada correspondent for The Economist. Coming up, we have business news. We'll look at the opening day's markets right now. Your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it's 16 degrees. We start off with gorgeous sunshine this morning, but clouds start to roll in around noon. Good chance they'll bring some showers, maybe even a thunderstorm. A high today of 25. The lone survivor of a mass shooting in Winnipeg's West Broadway area has died. Sean Marco was among 5 people shot a year and a half ago at a Langside Street rooming house. As CBC's Josh Crabb reports, his family wants justice.
He told the doctors he was going to prove them wrong. He was going to walk again. He was going to get out of there.
Melissa Marco says for 18 months, her brother Sean Marco fought for his life in a Winnipeg hospital. That's where he was ever since he was critically injured in November 2023 in a mass shooting that claimed the lives of 4 other people.
He got pneumonia again, and this time he couldn't fight it.
Marco died June 1st. The man accused of shooting him in a West Broadway rooming house was charged with attempted murder. Melissa says that charge should now be upgraded because her brother's dead.
We want justice, and we deserve justice, and so do all those other families.
34-year-old Jamie Randy Felix is also charged with 4 counts of second-degree murder in the deaths of Malelek Lesakel, Dylan Lavallee, and sisters Crystal and Stephanie Beardy. The Manitoba Prosecution Service told CBC any decisions in relation to what happened to Sean Marco will only be made after all relevant evidence is obtained and reviewed. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A First Nations health advocate is critical of a new report looking at racism in Winnipeg hospital emergency rooms. The report details experiences of Indigenous, Black, and South Asian patients. Dr. Barry Lavallee at Kiiwetinoong Ininu Minayawin says relying on statistics sanitizes the real-life experience of First Nations patients. Lavallee does not approve of the study's methodology.
To include other groups, like brown groups, really dilutes the First Nations experience for people who don't know how to read that. So it's really like lights that are bright that shouldn't be there.
Lavallee says First Nation-specific racism in Canada is unique. The study found ER waits in Winnipeg for Indigenous, African, or Black people are longer than for white patients. Excitement at the thought of going home has turned into disappointment by a delay for wildfire evacuees from Tatasqueyac Cree Nation. Just hours after that community lifted its evacuation order, a new state of emergency has been declared. In a statement on Facebook, Council says Tatasqueyac's water has been turned off after tests indicated high levels of aluminum. They ask returning residents now to stay where they are while the Chief and Council work with Indigenous Services Canada and Health Canada to fix the issue. Some Manitoba wildfire evacuees say their temporary home in Niagara Falls has left them feeling culture shock. Ashley Charlotte is a community and wellness worker who fled Puckatawagan Cree Nation 2 weeks ago. She says some of her fellow evacuees are having a hard time being cut off from familiar surroundings. But even in the, quote, concrete jungle, she says they find comfort by being close to Niagara Falls.
People find comfort in the falls because we are surrounded by water. And I think if we were put anywhere else other than beside the water or falls, there would be a lot of displaced people. And I think the falls give comfort because once you see the falls, you kind of feel okay inside because we're people of the land. You know, we don't grow up in cities.
Charlotte says a network of people are working to make sure everyone has the support they need in Niagara Falls. The Hatarian Emergency Aquatic Response Team has deployed now on the Assiniboine River in Brandon, helping to look for Owen Bedford. The 18-year-old was last seen at Houston's Bar on Victoria Avenue early Sunday morning. A grid search involved hundreds of volunteers trying to find any sign of where he may have gone. His sister, Jordan Bedford, says her family needs to find her baby brother.
He is never in trouble. He's always wanting to do what's best for the people around him. He cares. He's calm. He's very reserved, right? So it's very out of character. He's always with his friends and his family, and to not be present or speaking to anybody is obviously of great concern.
Bedford is about 5'7" with blonde hair and blue eyes. The family asks anyone with doorbell or security camera footage that may help locate him to come forward. You can see Owen Bedford's photo on our website this morning. Progressive Conservative leader Abhi Khan is asking Premier Rob Canoe to call a by-election in Spruce Woods as soon as possible. Khan says Canoe is taking too long. The Southwest Manitoba constituency's been without an MLA since March. That's when former PC MLA Grant Jackson resigned to run federally. Khan notes Canoe called by-elections in Tuxedo and Transcona more quickly after those seats became vacant.
He has a duty, regardless of how busy he is, to represent all Manitobans. whether it's in a progressive conservative held traditional riding or a NDP riding. All Manitobans deserve to have a right in the legislature. He is depriving Manitobans of that.
The PCs are the only party to ever win Spruce Woods. A by-election must be held by September 24th. And back-to-back cups.
On Dynasty's doorstep, the Florida Panthers back-to-back Stanley Cup champions.
That's the call on CBC and Sportsnet as Stanley Cup stays in Florida for another year. The Panthers beating the Edmonton Oilers 5-1 in Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Finals, taking the series 4-2, successfully defending their Stanley Cup championship, beating the Oilers for a second final in a row. You can hear more about that game and other national and international news coming up at World Report at 7. And you can find more Manitoba news at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Where were the Oilers last night?
I know.
I watched part of that game, pretty good part of that game, and I was like, are they all hurt? Are they is it physical? Like they did not look like they were fighting for a Stanley Cup. They looked kind of slow.
They were no match for Florida.
No, or they just got beat, right? It is sports. So, all right. Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
The door's open for the Jets to be the Canadian team to bring it back, I guess. It is now 6:36 a.m. and time for your regional forecast with Abby Adiemi. What's up?
Good morning. Once again, we're seeing warm sunshine in the southern part of the province this morning, and it is cooler in the northern regions. Winnipeg at this point, we are looking at a warm and sunny day ahead. A few clouds still hanging around this morning. Right now, 18 degrees. Sunshine starting to make its way through. As the morning clears, we've got lots of sunshine through the day. We warm up to around 25 degrees today with some winds coming from the northwest by the afternoon period. Also, we have a bit of sunshine, a bit of rain in the forecast also. For the Pembina Valley region, similar to Winnipeg, also sunny out there. We're seeing temperatures around 18 degrees at this time. Sunny and also rain on in the forecast, that part of the province. In Brandon, we have light rain earlier, but now it's a bit of cloudy with temperatures around 16 degrees, warming up to 25. In the Parkland region, we're seeing Dauphin at 14 already. Also, another warm day ahead, close to 25 this morning, and similar conditions in Gimli. Up north, we're seeing Thompson, Flin Flon, and the Par. We're seeing temperatures already 11 degrees in the Par at this time, 7 degrees in Thompson, and 5 degrees in Churchill. Mostly cloudy in both regions, and 21 degrees we see in Thompson today.
So, you're naming all these different communities and places and towns. And I know one of the things you do, and listeners, if you're a regular listener to our show, you know that Abby loves to go exploring, especially in the summer. You'll visit places.
Already looking forward to that.
Right? Go to festivals. I think you do the dirt bike thing in...
the Monster Ride, the
Saint Jean Baptiste.
Exactly. I also do that. And of course, the sunflower thing, the cornflower.
In Altona,
there's a whole bunch of things happening lined up.
So I was laughing because I was thinking about you yesterday because I was not south. We're talking about a lot of communities, south and southeast. That's where Altona and Saint Jean Baptiste are. But I was a little bit north. So I was about 20 minutes north of Winnipeg, just in Stonewall. Oh. Right? They have a quarry there. And so you should go visit, by the way. But this is funny because I am such a city girl. So I drive there to pick something up at Home Hardware, like full disclosure. I had ordered something from Home Hardware. Anyway, so I'm driving there and I'm like, I'll just go into town and I'll find it because, but I didn't follow the rule of small communities. Oh. Like, just go to Main Street, right?
Yeah.
So I don't do this. I got lost in Stonewall. Like, it's not a big place.
You should have just gone to the Main Street. Everything is like that. Just pull over on the side of the road and you see what you're looking for.
So people of Stonewall, if you saw somebody driving around yesterday, I pulled over 3 times. Like, I literally got lost and I had my thing up. I even had my phone in the cup holder that was like speaking out loud to me where I was supposed to be going. I still got turned around. I was laughing at myself so hard.
You made the wrong turn.
About 3 times. Yeah. So I'm driving around. I had a nice tour of Stonewall, though. It was a good reminder that we need to go to Stonewall and do some stories sometime. But yeah, that was me.
Small time vibe. Always beautiful.
At one point, I actually thought that I ended up in some kind of an industrial yard where hydro workers were working, and I actually thought they were going to say to me, "Excuse me, ma'am, what are you
shouldn't be here
doing?" I know. And then it was stuffing this screen door in the back of my car. It was a gong show. So, good morning, Stonewall. normal. That was me. All right, let's get into the morning commute this morning. Hopefully you get where you're going more expediently than I did yesterday. Sierra Sanders is in to run us down with what's happening.
So far, it's been pretty quiet on the commuter line. Things are moving along out there, but if there's anything slowing you down, whether it's out in the highways or in Stonewall, or here in Winnipeg, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
Yeah, thanks for that. Crystalie Ramlakan joins us now with Business News. Hey there, Crystalie.
Hi, good morning, Marcy.
So let's get started with more turmoil in the business of the mail. What can you share with us?
Yeah, so DHL Express Canada says it's going to shut down operations across the country amid a strike and lockout involving 2,100 truck drivers and other workers. So with the two sides at an impasse, the company says it's going to halt parcel deliveries starting this Friday. And that is the day that federal legislation banning replacement workers takes full effect. Now, earlier this month, the German-owned carrier said it was rolling out a contingency plan that would allow it to keep serving its more than 50,000 customers, which range from Lululemon to e-commerce giants Shein and Temu. Now, DHL has said it did not expect significant disruptions to its service, but now, of course, we're seeing a different story. And the union has been warning against replacing unionized workers with temporary ones. It has said that would put a chill on contract talks. And the upcoming shutdown adds to the uncertainty in the parcel market as Canada Post remains at a standstill with its 55,000 workers amid strained negotiations and an overtime ban imposed by the union last month.
Let's look at something federally that could be returning here. They're saying that the consumer rebates for electric vehicles will be back, right?
Yeah, that's right. So the federal environment minister says the government intends to bring back the rebates, but doesn't know what they'll look like quite yet. So the program launched in 2019, but ran out of money earlier this year. It offered up to $5,000 off the cost of a new EV. And over the last 6 years or so, the feds have spent nearly $3 billion on the program for more than 500,000 new passenger vehicles. However, the Conservatives are calling for the government to scrap its mandate for all new light-duty passenger vehicles sold to be zero emissions by 2035. The opposition says there are concerns about the auto sector now, which is threatened by U.S. tariffs. But sales of used gas-powered vehicles and plug-in hybrids will still be allowed after 2035. And auto manufacturers have also called for the government to repeal the mandate as EV sales have dropped, but that's also partly because, the rebates ended.
And finally this morning, TikTok is getting another lifeline, and again from the White House, right?
Yes, that's right. So U.S. President Donald Trump plans to grant the video app with another 90-day extension for the company to sell or be banned in the U.S. The White House says Trump does not want TikTok to go dark and that the administration will spend the next 3 months working to ensure the deal is closed so that users can continue to use TikTok with the assurance that their data is safe and secure. It's been about 5 months since a law went into effect requiring TikTok to be sold by its Chinese parent company or be banned. But of course, we know that hasn't happened yet. This is the third extension from the federal government there. And lawmakers have concerns that TikTok's Chinese ownership poses a national security risk. And, if the app is banned, that would affect Canadian creators who have audiences south of the border and Canadian users who watch American content.
What are the markets telling us this morning, Crystalie?
In Europe, stocks are mixed. Germany is down, the UK is up, France is up. In Asia, markets are mixed. Japan is up, Shanghai is up, Hong Kong is down. Oil is up 12 cents to $74.96 US per barrel. Gold is down $4.20 to $3,382.54 US per ounce. And the dollar is up 0.06 of a cent to 73.2 cents US.
All right, thank you. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Okay, thanks, Marcy.
That's Crystalie Ramlakan with our business news. All right, the long list is out for the Polaris Prize. We've been talking about the music, and Hildegard, the collaboration between artist Helena Deland and Ori, has their second project called Jour 1596, longlisted for the Polaris. It's really haunting, kind of cool music. Have a listen. This is called Remember Me.
Did I embellish the truth till it came out a lot to deserve your time? Told you nobody's stories, they sure as hell weren't mine. Nobody's stories, they sure as hell weren't mine anymore. Little things you'd forgive, I'm sure. Do you think of me? How do you think of me? Do you think of me? How do you think of me? Do you think of me? How do you think of me? Do you think of me? How do you think of me? Ran into your friend, thought I'd steer the small talk so that we might end up mentioning you. How you might even have said something that alludes to you. Think of me. How do you think of me? Do you think of me? How do you think of me? Do you think of me? How do you think of me? Do you think of me? How do you think of me?
Cool, right? Polaris long-listed music. That's from Hildegard. The song is called Remember Me. It is at 12 minutes to 7 o'clock, and you might remember and recall that every year Dr. Bardwaj does a column as we get to summertime and school starts to wind down that's all about kids' questions, and that is up next.
Good morning, Marcy.
All right, let's get into this. The good one for summertime to start with comes from Max. He's 10 years old, and he has asked, why do sunburns happen?
Yeah, that is a good one for summertime. Good question, Max. So sunburn is what we call it when your skin or even the surface of your eyeballs gets damaged by light from the sun. But here's a twist. It's part of the light from the sun that we can't actually see with our eyes. So, you know, when you see a rainbow, that's light from the sun that's getting split into different colors or different wavelengths, which, Max, you're going to learn about in high school someday. Don't sweat it too much. So we have names for each of those wavelengths. So what we see as red light has a wavelength of about 700 nanometers. Blue light is about 450 nanometers. And there are wavelengths of light that we can't see with our eyes. It's called ultraviolet light, and its wavelength is about 300 nanometers. So when some of that ultraviolet or UV light, when that UV light hits your skin, it can damage and burn the skin. And that triggers your body to try to repair the damage. So your skin gets red and it gets warm and it hurts or it burns. So if your skin keeps getting exposed to ultraviolet light and keeps getting sunburn over and over and over, that can make your cells act funny and turn into skin cancer cells. And so that's why protecting your skin and your eyes from sunlight is so important. So we want to avoid the pain, of course, but we also want to lower the chance of you getting skin cancer when you're older. So you can protect yourself from sunburns by hanging out in the shade and wearing hats and sunglasses and long sleeves when you go outside. And you can also put on some sunscreen to protect your skin too. So sunscreen works by either trapping or reflecting some of that UV light right before it gets to your skin and causes a burn. But sunscreen only works for a little while, so you have to remember to put it on again after about 2 hours if you're hanging out in the sun and being exposed to that UV light for a long time.
Next question comes from a 7-year-old named Cedar who has an anatomy question. I love this. Also, it says, how do your eyeballs stay in your head?
Yeah, that's a good one,
Right?
Cedar. In cartoons, you see eyeballs stretching out of heads and falling out of heads all the time.
Yeah, boing.
Yeah, the good news is that that's not a thing that happens in real life very much. And that's partly because your eyeballs live in little caves inside your skull, right? Your eye sockets. The fancy medical term is your orbit. So your eyeball lives inside your orbit, and the actual eyeball is bigger than the opening of the eye socket. So that's one thing. That's one of the main things that keeps them in there. Now, there's also a bunch of muscles that attach to the back and sides of your eyeballs, and they work so, like, you can move your eyeballs around and up and down and left and right without having to move your head. So those muscles take up some space, and they also attach onto the back of your eyeball. So they're not letting it go anywhere. And there's also things like fat and ligaments that sort of cushion your eyeball in the socket, plus a ropey nerve that goes from the back of your eyeball to your brain called your optic nerve. So all of that stuff, the muscles, the ligaments, the fat, the nerve, and the size of the eyeball compared to the size of your eye socket opening, all of those things are working together to keep your eyeballs where they belong inside your head. Now, there's this myth that goes around that if you sneeze with your eyes open, that your eyeballs might shoot out of your head. But don't worry, that can't happen.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yep.
As are all the listeners this morning. This next one comes from 14-year-old Emma. She asks, why does my voice sound different when I listen to it on a video compared to when I hear myself talk?
Ooh, that's a good one. And that's something that Marcy and I have had to put up for a long time now, right? So yeah, great observation. Your voice does sound different when you hear it on a video versus when you hear yourself talk. And that's because when you hear a recording of your voice, you're hearing the sound going through the air and hitting your ears. It's the jiggling, the vibration of the air that your eardrum inside your ear can sense. It turns those vibrations into nerve signals that get sent to your brain, and you hear that as sound. But when you talk, you're actually hearing a combination of that sound that goes through the air, plus you're hearing some of the vibrations from your own vocal cords that are traveling right through the bones of your head and going to your ear that way as well. And those vibrations, as they travel through your bones, those wavelengths slow down just a little bit. They just change a little bit. So you hear a sound that's a bit lower in pitch compared to what your voice sounds like on a recording. And here's the thing. What everyone else hears is what you hear on the recording. Your own voice, but a little tiny bit different. And if you don't like the sound of your own voice, don't worry. That's pretty normal. It's just not as familiar to you, and that's why you don't usually like it. But the more you hear your recorded voice, the more you'll get used to it.
Absolutely. That is the truth. And finally, we have time for one more for this round. This is 10-year-old Clara. She says, what happens if you eat a small piece of Lego, Dr. Bardwaj? And by the way, she wants us to know that she has not done that. She's just curious.
That's a great question, Clara. I'm glad you're curious. I'm also glad that you haven't eaten a piece of Lego, because the first thing, Clara, to know is that Lego is not food. It's made out of plastic, and it's plastic that your body cannot digest. It goes right through you without breaking down, and it comes out the other end. But it turns out that some doctors in Australia were curious about this exact same question, and they actually did an experiment to figure it out. So they published their paper back in 2018 in a science journal called the Journal of Pediatrics and Child Health. And it's available online. This article is available online for free, and I recommend all the parents who are listening to go look it up. It is a good read. So the doctors were curious about how long does it usually take for a Lego head, a piece of Lego, to go from your mouth out the other end. And to figure that out, 6 doctors volunteered to swallow a Lego head and then to look for it in their poop every day until they found it. And they called that time from when they swallowed it to when they found it, they called that the found and retrieved time, or fart score. And it turns out...
Clever.
Yeah. There's more clever stuff in the paper that I'm not even going to talk about. But yeah, it turns out that the average time for those adults to pass the Lego head was just under 2 days. But out of the 6 doctors who volunteered for the study, one of them never found the Lego head that they swallowed. Now, it's pretty tiny, and finding it can be kind of hard and really gross. So, they figure it was no big deal. That problem, the doctor who didn't find their Lego head didn't have any problems afterwards. So the take home from the study for parents is that if your child does accidentally swallow a Lego piece, it'll pass through in about 1 to 3 days without causing any problems. The second take home that the doctors mentioned is that parents probably don't need to check their kids' poop to make sure that it passes, because it's not going to cause any problems. Now, that is true for Lego heads and other small inert things, but there's one really big exception that is actually quite serious, and that's button batteries. So the little button batteries that you see in small electronics or toys or something, if someone swallows one of those, that's a true emergency. And you have to go to the hospital right away and get checked out immediately. And that's because button batteries can damage and burn the inside lining of your stomach very, very badly because of the electricity that they have. So remember, your mouth is not a pocket. Don't hold stuff in your mouth. I've seen, Lego pieces, coins, rocks. I've seen adults who were working on a project at home and had nails between their lips and accidentally swallowed those. Yeah, so please, your mouth is not a pocket. If you accidentally swallow anything, please tell an adult right away.
Great round of questions from the young people today. Thank you, Dr. Bardwaj, for the answers.
My pleasure.
So that's a special edition of our medical column with Dr. Raj Bardwaj. It is now 3 minutes to 7 o'clock. Thanks for spending some time with us on CBC this Wednesday, June 18th. Let's find out what's making news today. Here's your headlines with Heather Wells.
Good morning. A First Nations health advocate does not approve of the methodology used for a new report on racism in Winnipeg hospital emergency rooms. That report gathered details on the experiences of Indigenous, Black, and South Asian patients. Dr. Barry LaValle says relying on statistics like these sanitizes the real-life experience of First Nations patients. Progressive Conservative leader Abi Khan is asking the Premier to call a by-election in Spruce Woods as soon as possible. Khan says Wabkanu's taking too long. The Southwest Manitoba constituency has been without an MLA since March. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 7:30.
All right. Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
So that story with concerns about this latest report about what's going on in ERs and wait times, Dr. Barry LaValle will actually be our guest as well in the next hour. So we have a full interview with him. Also, still speaking of things medical, what would the impact be of removing sick notes for short-term illness? What would the impact be on businesses in Manitoba? We're going to look at that angle of the story. It started developing yesterday. We have the Canadian Federation of Independent Business on this morning for some reaction. And then our community reporter, Shanley Vidal, has a fun story. Star Wars meets martial arts. We're going to meet a Winnipeg group that trains in lightsaber combat. Super fun. It is 1 minute to 7 o'clock right now. The commute's moving fine so far. If that's not true in your life, call Sierra, 788-3093. And in the forecast, mainly sunny right now in Winnipeg. It's 16 degrees. And we are expecting increasing cloud near noon. So grab an umbrella or a jacket if you're leaving this morning, because we have a 60% chance of those showers or thunderstorms throughout the afternoon period. Stay with us on 89.3 FM. World Report is coming up next.
Today on The Current.
Air India Flight 182, a Boeing 747, left Toronto and Montreal last night, bound for London and India. It never made it.
It has been 40 years since the Air India bombing that killed more than 300 people, and Canadian families who lost loved ones are still fighting to make sure this tragedy is remembered as a part of this country's history. That's coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Israeli warplanes bombard Tehran overnight. The Israeli military says it hit a facility used to make uranium centrifuges. Iran is warning the United States that if it becomes directly involved in Israel's campaign, Iran will respond firmly. U.S. President Donald Trump is calling for Iran's unconditional surrender. Russia, a close ally of Iran, is also watching this conflict. The two countries recently signed a strategic partnership. But as the CBC's Briar Stewart reports, Moscow is not prepared to wade in militarily.
It was just in January when Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a strategic cooperation pact with the president of Iran, Masoud Pezeshkian. The agreement outlined areas where the two countries would bolster ties, including defense. Tehran has already supplied Moscow with thousands of Shahed drones for its war in Ukraine, and it helped Russia set up a factory to mass produce them. But Moscow has been reluctant to supply Iran with the weaponry it wants.
The kinds of capabilities that the Iranians really want from Russia and that they would have needed to better defend themselves against the kinds of Israeli strikes that we're now seeing, those kinds of capabilities Russia has not given Iran.
Hannah Nate is with the James Martin Center for Non-Proliferation Studies and is based in Berlin. She says there's no evidence that Russia has given Iran the fighter jets it's been asking for or additional air defense systems. She says Russia wants to keep all of its own weapons for its war on Ukraine, and it also doesn't want to damage its relationships with other Middle Eastern countries like the United Arab Emirates.
I think Putin has remained mindful of certain Israeli red lines when it comes to Russian defense cooperation with Iran.
The Kremlin has had calls with leaders from both countries, and while Putin won't agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine, he is trying to convince world leaders that Russia could be helpful in the Middle East. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
Fans of the Irish language hip hop group Kneecap are celebrating in the streets of London. Rapper Mo Farah appeared in court today to face a charge of supporting a banned terrorist organization. He allegedly waved a Hezbollah flag at a concert in London last November. Kneecap says the move is politically motivated and an effort to silence its support for Palestinians ahead of the Glastonbury Festival. Mo Farah has been released on unconditional bail. The G7 summit is over and world leaders are leaving Kananaskis, Alberta. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky did not leave the summit empty-handed, but he was looking for more support written into a leader's statement. The CBC's Marie Brewster has more on what Canadian officials have to say about that.
This was discussed by all 7 leaders.
Prime Minister Mark Carney clarifying what went on behind closed doors as G7 leaders discussed what to say about Ukraine. Curiously, as the summit closed, there was no separate joint statement from leaders about the situation in Eastern Europe. Instead, Carney referenced the country's struggle in his chairman's remarks, hitting all of the points leaders agreed upon.
The recognition of the importance of the initiative of President Trump to achieve a lasting peace. Absolutely agreed. That we are resolute in pursuing all options to maximize pressure on Russia, including financial sanctions. Agreed.
However, officials in Carney's office told Canadian journalists on background that the United States wanted any criticism of Russia watered down in earlier drafts because it would endanger Donald Trump's peace initiative. Those officials later retracted those remarks. Carney, however, in his news conference, hinted that other nations had wanted him to go further in his statement.
There would be things that some of us, Canada included, would say above and beyond what was said in the chair's summary.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, like Donald Trump, left the summit early. Zelensky went home with $4.3 billion in additional Canadian aid, but was hoping for stronger support from the G7. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Banff, Alberta.
The relationship between India and Canada is showing signs of thawing. At the G7 yesterday, both countries agreed to reinstate high commissioners, and they're looking at restoring visa services to each other's citizens and for business purposes. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi told reporters ties between both countries are extremely important. He says he's looking forward to moving the relationship in a positive direction. Prime Minister Mark Carney says they also discussed the need to address foreign influence. Being a kid is tough enough, but more young Canadians are having to juggle caring for a loved one and themselves. A recent study by Canadian physicians shows these young caregivers need better support from healthcare providers. As Jennifer Yoon reports, the numbers of teen caregivers is also expected to grow as Canada's population ages.
That would survival. If I didn't do it, no one else would.
Jessie Sidhu says she was 4 years old when she started looking after her dad and her siblings. Her dad was struggling with addiction. Her mom working to support the family.
Just kind of the basics of making sure that he was fed, that he had food, getting him water. And it doesn't sound like much, but when you're a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old taking care of a grown person who's in their 30s, it definitely takes a toll.
She didn't know it yet, but Jessie was acting as a caregiver. And there are more young caregivers in Canada than you might think. 1.5 million between the ages of 15 and 30 who look after loved ones with serious health problems.
They are a hidden population.
Vivian Stamatopoulos is a sociologist at Ontario Tech University in Oshawa and an advocate for caregivers. She expects more young people to step up to caregiving roles as Canada's population ages.
We know a lot of these youth struggle from massive levels of anxiety and depression, often undiagnosed and untreated.
A recent study published in the journal Canadian Family Physician suggests doctors can step in. Lucas Perry is a co-author and a former young caregiver himself.
I acknowledge that you guys are caregiving and that's an important role, and check in on the people who are caregivers and to sort of ask them questions as well.
He's hoping if doctors are able to identify young caregivers, they'll also be able to connect them with the help they need. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
It is an intriguing case in the world of Canadian fine art, centered around what is believed to be an original unsigned painting by Tom Thompson. The work vanished 4 years ago, and its owner filed a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against a Toronto auction house. As Farah Morali reports, the work of art has now resurfaced all these years later.
It's a beautiful work of art.
Lawyer Stephen Bookman places an 8x12 painting in a gold frame on an easel in his office. It depicts Tea Lake Dam in Ontario's Algonquin Park and belongs to his client, Michael Murray, who hasn't seen it in 10 years. Bookman broke the news to him last month. It had been found.
He was absolutely shocked when I told him that the painting had been recovered.
The painting, believed to be an unsigned piece by renowned Canadian painter Tom Thompson, associated with the Group of Seven. Back in 2015, Murray says he arranged for the artwork to be picked up by Waddington's auctioneers and appraisers in Toronto. But several years later, after Murray contacted the auction house, he was told they didn't have the painting. What followed? An $11 million lawsuit against the auction house. Court documents show Waddington's denied they ever had it. Until last month, when they contacted Bookman saying it had been found in a climate-controlled storeroom.
This thing has had a rather mysterious travel.
Michael Murray says while he's relieved it's been found, he still has lots of questions.
There is an interest on my side to kind of understand, how it could be missing for 10 years and then all of a sudden show up.
Murray is still moving ahead with the lawsuit, seeking damages for the years the painting was lost. A lawyer representing Waddington's told CBC News they can't comment because the matter is before the courts, so it could be much longer before Murray gets the answers he's looking for. Farah Morali, CBC News, Toronto.
The Florida Panthers are bringing home the Stanley Cup for the second year in a row. A huge disappointment for Oilers fans and anyone who wanted Lord Stanley back on this side of the border.
It was pretty devastating.
Feels like a death in the family. Very depressing.
It hurts really bad. Second year in a row, but it's okay. We'll come back. McDavid's going to re-sign. That's what we're hoping anyways.
Florida was the better team. Everything Edmonton was able to do, Florida was able to do, but better. They just played a better game, honestly. That's all there really is to it.
The Panthers beat Edmonton 5-1, taking the series in 6 games. Oilers coach Chris Knobloch says there is no silver lining. It is going to hurt for a while, and Leafs fans understand. That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Well, Well, hi, everyone. Welcome to Wednesday morning. Thanks for spending some time with us here on Information Radio. You're on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. We're going to get some rain today in the forecast. Abby will get into that in a moment. This hour on the show, we've got a couple of medical stories. The first one is about sick notes. What impact would the removal of sick notes in the short-term illnesses have on businesses in Manitoba? We're going to talk to the Canadian Federation of Independent Business for some reaction to this. In addition, this hour on the show, one Indigenous doctor fears a new report from Shared Health is only downplaying racism in Winnipeg emergency rooms instead of helping to mitigate it. So we're going to take a closer look at the report in question, and he will share his point of view on it coming up later in the show. And then at 7:40, a really fun story from our community reporter, Shanley Vidal. Star Wars meets martial arts. We're going to talk to a Winnipeg group that trains in lightsaber combat. Fun stuff. Is your saber red or blue? All right, let's get into what's happening with Heather Wells, who is here in our news center. Good morning.
Of a mass shooting in Winnipeg's West Broadway area has died. 56-year-old Sean Marco died earlier this month after getting pneumonia a third time. He had been in hospital since being shot and critically injured in a rooming house on Langside Street in November of 2023. 4 other people were killed in that shooting. We're going to hear more. We'll hear from his family coming up. Some wildfire evacuees from northern Manitoba say they're having a hard time adjusting to their temporary home in Niagara Falls. Ashley Charlotte is a community and wellness worker who fled Puckatawagan 2 weeks ago. She says people are feeling a sense of culture shock, living in a concrete jungle. We'll hear from her coming up in our next news at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
We also are going to have an evacuee in the studio with us this morning. So that's coming up after 8 o'clock. So stay tuned for that. Lots of different experiences out there. And I know that it's, I shouldn't say I know. I imagine it must be just really difficult, right? Like you're going through all these acute experiences, leave quickly, take everything, wait, wonder. Some people can go back, some can't. Your living situation continues to change. And then also people start to sort of move on, so to speak, right? Start talking about the end of school and summertime and you're still sleeping on a cot and worried about home. So lots of emotions for the wildfire evacuees. So good morning if you're listening. We feel you. We're trying to cover your stories as best we can. Right now, let's get into this weather forecast. Of course, what's needed in the wildfire situation is rain, and we need rain everywhere. We're going to get a little today. Here's Abby.
Yes, we will be getting a little bit of rain here and there today, though we're starting with some sunshine and warm conditions in the southern part of the province. It is cooler up north. Beautiful sunrise across most of the regions this morning. It is calm at 16 degrees right now in Winnipeg. Clear outside. The sun is also making its presence being felt as we move through the morning. Sunshine sticks around for a while. By the midday period, we'll see some clouds roll in. This afternoon, there is a good chance of showers or even thunderstorms as conditions become, as the conditions roll in. It's going to be a warm one, though. We'll warm up to 25 degrees in the city, and then those cloudy conditions and more showers likely to continue into the overnight period and into tomorrow morning. Across the southern regions, the Parkland region, the Westman region, the Interlake region, we're seeing temperatures between 14 and 18 as sunshine dominates the sky in most of the regions. Also a good chance of showers in most of the regions. Now up north, the powerful influence Thompson Churchill, conditions cooler this morning. We're seeing 4 to 11 degrees in most of those regions.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Once again in Winnipeg, 16. Let's get to the morning commute with Sierra Sanders.
It has been quiet on the commuter line so far this morning, so things are moving along out there. If there's anything slowing you down, though, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
Well, that leaves us a couple of minutes to talk about a way that some people maybe not commute, but certainly do move their bodies. I'm talking about hiking and walking and running and camping along the Ontario Trail. We had an interview early this morning to start the show about the loss of the trail, because if you're a hiker, you've probably heard that the legendary Ontario is closed indefinitely. So temporary loss. But this is because wildfires have spread over a significant portion of it. So we talked to a trail runner about what it means to her and, her experiences on the trail. Some of you have written in as well to our producer who was working on this story. And so I just want to share some of this because they're just lovely. Daniel wrote in, we just completed the Ontario Trail on May 7th to 10th this spring. We brought our school outdoor education class. They finished the entire trail. It was quite the accomplishment for the grade 11 and 12 students. And then this is a thoughtful one from Justin who wrote in to us. spent countless hours volunteering my time doing self-organized trail maintenance. I think I've been down the length of the trail at least a dozen times. I've canoed extensively through the various water routes as well. That bisect the trail, rather. Last week, Justin writes, I returned from a 6-month deployment to Latvia with the Canadian Armed Forces. And one of the things I was looking forward to upon returning was to head out onto the Ontario with my son and some dear friends to reconnect with each other with the wild. To say that I'm grieving the loss of access to this place would be an understatement. At any rate, I'm rambling, but the Ontario is something I'm deeply passionate about. So thanks to everyone who wrote into our producer and was also part of the show this morning. Early this morning, Renee Desjardins was our guest talking about what the trail has meant to her. If you want to weigh in, you can give us a call, or you can also weigh in on any other of the spaces that you might be missing this summer due to wildfires. Maybe they're closed, maybe they're damaged. But important to, of course, heed the advice from the province about where you absolutely should not go. But if you want to share some memories from your favorite spots, we'd love to hear that. 788-3205. 7:16 is the time right now. As mentioned, it's 16 degrees and it is partly cloudy in Winnipeg, and it's also partly cloudy in Brandon. I'm just mentioning that because I know Abby's just running through things, but the rain has now stopped there. It was raining last hour. Next on the show, Doctors Manitoba, as I've alluded to at the top of the hour, is asking for the elimination of sick notes. They've just launched a campaign. It's called Sick of Sick Notes. This is President of Doctors Manitoba, Dr. Nichelle Desilets.
You've likely heard us talk about the cost of sick notes before, and this is how it adds up. There are over 600,000 sick notes requested in Manitoba every year. Every sick note takes time away from patients who need medical care, and that's particularly concerning at a time when Manitoba has the second worst doctor shortage in the country. Eliminating sick notes will free up about 300,000 appointments annually, and that's the equivalent of having 50 doctors added to our province. Many visits to get a sick note are actually medically unnecessary, with no symptoms to verify and no new medical care required. Those visits cost taxpayers about $8 million per year.
That was the president of Doctors Manitoba, Dr. Nichelle Desilets, on Sick of Sick Notes campaign, which calls on employers to stop asking their workers for sick notes. Well, we have another point of view on this today. Soren Yu is a senior policy analyst with the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, which advocates for small businesses. Good morning.
Good morning.
So I know you've weighed in on this before, but for those that may not know your point of view, should sick notes be eliminated?
Well, we do support reducing red tape in the healthcare field. As CFIB, we've previously collaborated with Doctors Manitoba to reduce administrative burden on physicians, and we know that sick notes is one of the things that are frequently cited as a burden. As well as small business owners, as citizens, they know the importance of freeing up physicians' times. When we've previously surveyed our small business members in Manitoba, almost 60% let us know that they don't require sick notes at all from their employees, and the rest only ask sometimes, depending on the situation. However, with that said, we do want to just word a caution of the length that's being maybe prescribed in Manitoba, because 10 days of absence without having the ability to keep their employees accountable can really impact small businesses and their ways of operation.
I was going to ask you about that detail. So the pushback, I guess the but for some businesses is that 10 days would be too long. So if businesses benefit by knowing, needing a sick note rather, what length of time would be reasonable in your view?
For sure. So we actually were able to recently survey our business members in Manitoba about in BC, about the elimination of sick notes, because the BC government recently proposed legislation to eliminate them. So while we are a different province, I don't think the sentiment would stray too much for Manitoba businesses. Most of the BC businesses, they told us they would consider 2 to 3 days to be the reasonable amount to be considered short-term leave. As well, when we look at other provinces like Nova Scotia or Ontario, I believe the maximum they prescribe most of the time is 5 days.
Why? Can you help us understand from a business point of view, why that makes a difference? 2-3 days or 5 days versus 10 without a sick note?
For sure. I mean, that's added burden on the business owner as well as their employees. For instance, let's say you would have employees that are calling in sick consecutively for 10 days. I know 10 days is a bit of an extreme, but if they are taking the full advantage, not only would this impact small businesses and their ways of operation, it could potentially impact other employees in that business where they have to take on extra work, having to fill shifts on short notice, etc. That's not an environment any business wants to create for their employees as well. We did a study in 2023 and found that the average small business owner in Canada works 54 hours a week. That's the equivalent of an 8-day work week for most salaried workers. And going even further, those business owners who say they work more hours because of staffing challenges, they clock in even more at about 59 hours a week. So this is why we just note that word of caution and say if the province isn't careful with how the elimination of sick notes is applied, they could potentially be adding more onto small business owners' plates who are already working above and beyond what should be required and cause a burnout.
If you look at the what Doctors Manitoba has said, they're looking at appointment time and they're looking at money. So as you heard in the clip, and they elaborated on this, that they say without sick notes it would free up up to 10 days. It would free up though to make this change 300,000 medical appointments and save about $8 million a year. So I know that you're talking about sort of the just to consider sort of how many extra hours might be worked by small businesses and such, and how much staff disruptions could happen should sick notes not be required up to 10 days. But is there a financial cost as well to businesses? Is there a way to quantify that to look at the other perspective from the businesses?
I'm sure there is a way to quantify it. However, I can't quote an exact financial figure for how much it costs for businesses just because we didn't do an in-depth study of that.
Okay.
However, we do know that reducing red tape is important in the healthcare sector. We've done research on that. Small business owners, they really prioritize the healthcare field, not just for themselves, but their employees, families, and friends as well. So they try not to abuse their power as much as possible, with about more than half just not requiring sick notes at all from their employees. It's just the fact that they need something to keep their employees accountable. And if this policy is being taken away, something else will have to be introduced, maybe in the form of attestation forms signed by employees or whatever it may be. But there just needs to be an alternative measure that's provided for accountability and legal sake.
And you're trying to manage people too, right? You're also trying to manage your business. Can you elaborate on what some alternatives to sick notes could be? You mentioned a form there, and I just missed what kind of form you said.
For sure. So some of the things that we advocate for are things like attestation forms. So this is just a form that's legally recognized that can be just signed by the owner and the employee, acknowledging, hey, I was actually sick when I said that I was sick and called in sick, rather than going into the hospital or the clinic and trying to get a sick note. It's just a little bit easier to do on their own, for businesses to keep their employees accountable, as well as just have that legal teeth.
How would this affect potentially, what they're talking about here, this change? How could it affect large and small businesses differently? Because I'm thinking that most of the small businesses will be greater affected because of what you're talking about. They have to pick up the hours if they can't get people in. But is that right-minded to be thinking that? That small businesses will bear the brunt of this?
It really depends. If we're looking at shorter terms, so let's say 3 to 4 days or 2 to 3 days of allowing sick days without requiring sick notes, I don't think it would impact the small businesses as much, just because provinces like Ontario and Nova Scotia, they have similar legislations in place, but we haven't really heard much negative things from small businesses in those provinces, just because most of them also don't require sick notes at all from their employees because they don't want to bog down the healthcare system. However, when it gets longer, for sure, I think that is when we'll see a lot of the negative impacts taking effect, maybe on smaller businesses just because of their employee size.
We'll leave it there, Sue Wren, unless there's anything you'd like to add that I haven't asked about that you feel is important to share.
I think I just want to reiterate that we do really support the reduction of red tape in the healthcare field. And sick notes is a commonly cited issue, and small business owners, they recognize that as well. And while we are mostly in support of, the elimination of sick notes for the most part, it's really dependent on how it's executed. Just the length, I think, is what we're being most cautious
That's the
about.
key issue. Yeah.
Yes.
All right,
sure.
Suren, thank you very much for being with us this morning on CBC. We appreciate your perspective.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
That is the Senior Policy Analyst of Interprovincial Affairs for the Canadian Federation of Business. And if you're a business owner listening, you know what I'm going to say. We do want to hear from you. We'd love to speak with you. So if you're willing and open, 204-788-3205. It is 16 in Winnipeg, partly cloudy. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team here at Information Radio on CBC. And it's time for sports. Claude Fague is in for Scott this morning again. Hi, Claude.
Good morning, Marcy.
Oh, no cup for Canada. The Oilers really, no match for Florida Panthers last night.
Not at all, Marcy. In fact, for a second year in a row, the Edmonton Oilers are leaving Florida as spectators of a Stanley Cup party. Yes, the state of sunshine, oranges, and orange hair is now become a cup dynasty. The Oil were simply no match for the defending champion Panthers last night. In particular, Vancouver's Sam Reinhart, who opened the scoring early in the first period and put an emphatic stamp on the game with his fourth goal of the game in a 5-1 win to clinch the series in 6 games. Now, those 4 goals in a cup-clinching final, in fact, for Reinhart, are the first since Babe Dye did it for the old Toronto St. Pats back in 1922 when they beat the Vancouver Millionaires. It's a little history lesson for you. Now, questions about team chemistry and roster have already begun percolating in Edmonton, but for now, a very emotional Captain Connor McDavid living in the moment, applauding the efforts of the Panthers.
They're a heck of a team. The Stanley Cup champions back-to-back for a reason. They tilted the rink. They were able to kind of stay on top of us all over the place. Never really able to generate any momentum. We kept trying the same thing over and over again, just banging our heads against the wall. So credit to them. They played well.
And no need to remind hockey fans in this country, of course, that is now 31 seasons and counting without the cup.
Okay, ready? Let's move on. Canada flexes its scoring muscle against Honduras, however, at the Gold Cup.
Yeah, there was certainly some good news last night, even minus their best player and a couple of others missing. Canada erupted for 6 goals last night as they opened the CONCACAF Gold Cup with a convincing 6-0 whitewash of Honduras at BC Place in Vancouver. The Canadian side was led by Tejan Buchanan, who scored twice in the second half. Now, the 6-pack goal outburst, by the way, the most Canada has scored in a game since a 7-0 Round 1 World Cup qualifier victory over Aruba in June of 2021. And another key missing piece in last night's match was head coach Jesse Marsh, who's serving a 2-game suspension after he was red-carded during a Nations League game against the U.S. back in March. His assistant coach is Mauro Biello.
That's the mentality when Jesse came in, and the players, they love it. They enjoyed it. And as a staff, we continue to push these guys every day to get to that next level. And we set certain standards, and players then start to hold each other accountable and start pushing themselves at training and in game. So that's what we want to achieve. And we're on our way now. It's a good team. And now you see the potential starting to come out with these boys.
And Canada will now head south to Texas and a date with Curaçao this Saturday in Houston.
And one Canadian Olympic champion wants more love for her sport.
Yeah, that's true. For those who think hammer curls are tough, try tossing an actual hammer or the hammer throw for distance. That's what Richmond, BC native Cameron Rogers does, and she certainly does it very well. Rogers captured gold in the women's hammer throw at last year's Paris Olympics, nearly 77 meters. It was the first by a woman in this country. Now, Rogers won an event at the 68th Paavo Nurmi Games in Turku, Finland last night, but says her biggest win would be to see the sport gain more visibility.
There's a lot of missed opportunities to have us involved, and I think we're a very exciting event. We have 5 of the top 10 all time hammer throwers competing at this moment right now in history. And that's something that you don't always get in every event, maybe even every sport, I think we should have our chance to shine at some of these other meets as well. And that actually goes for every field event.
Yeah, Roger says she'd like to see more field events added to the existing track events.
All right. Thanks a lot, Claude.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. That's Claude Faig with Morning Sports here on CBC in for Scott. Well, after your news at 7:30, see if you can guess what this is. It's my best impression of a lightsaber. Our community reporter is going to tell us how Star Wars meets martial arts in Winnipeg. Stay tuned.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is 16 degrees. Lots of beautiful sunshine out there this morning. That's going to change this afternoon, becoming cloudy with a good chance of showers, maybe even a thunderstorm. Today's high is 25. The lone survivor of a mass shooting in Winnipeg's West Broadway area has died. Sean Marco was among 5 people shot a year and a half ago at a Langside Street rooming house. As CBC's Josh Crabb reports, his family wants justice.
He told the doctors he was going to prove them wrong. He was going to walk again. He was going to get out of there.
Melissa Marco says for 18 months, her brother Sean Marco fought for his life in a Winnipeg hospital. That's where he was ever since he was critically injured in November 2023 in a mass shooting that claimed the lives of 4 other people.
He got pneumonia again, and this time he couldn't fight it.
Marco died June 1st. The man accused of shooting him in a West Broadway rooming house was charged with attempted murder. Melissa says that charge should now be upgraded because her brother's dead.
We want justice, and we deserve justice, and so do all those other families.
34-year-old Jamie Randy Felix is also charged with 4 counts of second-degree murder in the deaths of Malelek Lesakel, Dylan Lavallee, and sisters Crystal and Stephanie Beardy. The Manitoba Prosecution Service told CBC any decisions in relation to what happened to Sean Marco will only be made after all relevant evidence is obtained and reviewed. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A First Nations health advocate does not approve of the methodology used for a new report on racism in Winnipeg hospital emergency rooms. That report gathered details on the experiences of Indigenous, Black, and South Asian patients. Dr. Barry Lavallee at Kiiwetinoong Ininu Meneyawan says relying on statistics sanitizes the real-life experience of First Nations patients.
By bringing that across to other people, you actually minimize and you conceal in data that, it's not only First Nations people experiencing racism, it's Black people, it's brown people, etc. So it might not be as bad as you think.
Lavallee says First Nation-specific racism in Canada is unique. The study found the ER waits in Winnipeg for Indigenous, African, or Black people are longer than for white patients. Some wildfire evacuees from northern Manitoba say they are having a hard time adjusting to their temporary home in Niagara Falls. Ashley Charlotte is a community and wellness worker who fled Puckatawagan Cree Nation 2 weeks ago. She says people are feeling a sense of culture shock after being forced from their homes and into an unfamiliar urban setting.
We come from a small, isolated community, and a lot of our people have barely left that little corner of earth up there in northern Manitoba. We're isolated, a fly-in community, train-in community, and only Winter Road.
Charlotte says a network of people are working to make sure everyone has the support they need in Niagara Falls. Well, excitement at the thought of going home has become disappointment because of a delay at Titasqueat Cree Nation. Just hours after that community lifted its evacuation order, a new state of emergency was declared. In a statement yesterday, Council says Titasqueat's water has been turned off after water tests indicated high levels of aluminum. Leaders ask returning residents to stay where they are while the Chief and Council work with Indigenous Services Canada and Health Canada to fix the issue. Former Progressive Conservative leader Abi Khan accuses Premier Wab Kinew of dragging his feet on calling a by-election in Spruce Woods. The Southwest Manitoba constituency has been without an MLA since March. That's when PC MLA Grant Jackson resigned to run federally. Khan notes Kinew called by-elections in Tuxedo and Transcona much more quickly after those seats became vacant.
He thought he had a chance to win Tuxedo. He called it early.
He thought he had a chance of winning Transcona. He called it early. Now this is more than 120 days before he can even pull this. It's clear that he doesn't want to call it because he's afraid that he's going to lose this one.
The PCs are the only party to ever win Spruce Woods. A by-election must be held by September 24th. Well, there is no joy in Edmonton.
Very depressing. We'll get him next year, I guess. It hurts really bad. Second year in a row. But, I mean, it's okay. I mean, we'll come back.
Pretty disappointed. I mean, going to the game, I was preparing for heartbreak, but I also believe they could do it as well. But end of the day, Panthers were the better team.
That's the response from the streets of Edmonton last night after Florida defeated the Edmonton Oilers to win their second straight Stanley Cup. The Panthers beating Edmonton 5-1. It's the second year in a row Florida has beaten the Oilers in the Cup final, and it means Canada's Stanley Cup drought continues for another year. Montreal was the last Canadian team to win the Stanley Cup, and that was back in 1993. You can find the latest news and national news as well coming up on World Report at 8, but you can always find the latest Manitoba news at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks, Heather Wells.
You're welcome.
Let's get into now the regional forecast at 7:30, 6 a.m. on the nose here on your Wednesday. Abby?
Yeah, we're looking at sunshine in the southern part of the province and a mix of sun and clouds, cool conditions up north. Beautiful sunrise we've been seeing all morning. In the Red River Valley regions, we're seeing temperatures in Winnipeg and surrounding areas come at 16 degrees at this point. Sunshine really brightens the morning. But by midday, clouds will be rolling in. We have showers or thunderstorms this afternoon, and that will make the winds shift from the northwest and turning windy by that time. We'll see highs around 25, though with the humidity factored in, it's going to be feeling like 28 degrees. Similar conditions we're seeing in the Pembina Valley region. It's mainly sunny this morning from Morden all the way down to the U.S. borders. We're seeing temperatures around 18. Clouds will also roll in around the midday period with that chance of showers and a risk of thunderstorms in the afternoon, warming up to 26. In Brandon, 15 degrees and partly cloudy at this time. We're also expecting a mix of sun and clouds. That will turn mostly cloudy as we get into the morning. Showers and thunderstorms also likely by the afternoon period. Winds coming from the southwest becoming windy at some point. Highs around 25. In the Parkland region, it's currently 14 in Dauphin. A few early morning showers spotted early and thunderstorms moving through with a good chance of showers still hanging back in the afternoon period, and another set of risk of thunderstorms to come with that. Temperatures will warm to 21. In the Interlake region, 17 right now in Gimli and surrounding areas. Partly cloudy morning we're seeing with clouds getting thicker into the afternoon. There's a good chance of showers and thunderstorms also later today. Hazy skies expected in that part of the regions. We'll see the wind shift from a northwest and become a windy at some point, warming up to 24. Now we head into the northern part of the province this morning. The Parkland Flon nearby areas, we're seeing 11 degrees and partly cloudy skies. Also a mix of sun and clouds in the mix today. Expect a high of 16 degrees. Winds coming from the northwest, becoming breezy later. In Thompson, it's mostly cloudy at 8 degrees. We're looking for a mix of sun and clouds today with a high of 14 in that part of the province. Now tracking conditions further north in Churchill, we're seeing 4 degrees at this time. Mostly cloudy. We saw some rain earlier. Now we're going to see a mix of sun and clouds that will develop into your lunch break. Winds coming from the north, and it will get breezy at some point, and then we'll see some light winds around the noon period. High will be around 12 degrees. So it's cooler up north and more like warmer down south with rain in the forecast. Winnipeg sits at 16 degrees right now, warming up to 25 degrees.
All right, thanks very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Let's get into the morning commute details now. Sierra Sanders has popped back in. Anything going on?
Not too much, not that I've heard of at least. So no calls on the commuter lines so far. So things are moving along out there here in Winnipeg, outside of the city. It sounds like on the highways. But if anything is out there slowing you down, whether it's in the city here or if you're out on the highways, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That's 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks. We'll take it. An uneventful commuting Wednesday morning is all right. Do remember to check 511 before you're heading out on the highways, and also note where things are still closed, as we still have wildfire situations, of course, still people evacuated from their communities and cities. So check before you go. At 21 minutes to 8 o'clock, let's get to something fun. The force is strong with the Red River. I got it wrong. I got to do it again. Okay, wait. I'm going to channel my voice. The force is strong with the River City Sabres. Okay, a bit better. They're a Winnipeg group that trains in combat. They use LED lightsabers. CBC Manitoba's community reporter, Shanley Vidal, was at a recent class at the Chalmers Community Centre.
This is River City Sabres.
It's a way to channel your inner Jedi, or Sith, and work up a sweat. River City Sabres is a Winnipeg-based group that teaches people how to fence with replica lightsabers that glow in colors like green, purple, and of course, red.
Blades are made of polycarbonate. They're practically indestructible. You can take these things full force against a tree and they won't break. Get some light going there.
That's co-founder Scott Isaac. He helped develop the combat techniques, which are a fusion of different martial arts styles, such as German longsword and kendo.
When we do actual sparring, we're wearing lacrosse gear, fencing helmets. We're completely geared up for safety. Alex, let's go.
My name is Alex Dvorak. I've been with River City Sabres for 9-ish years now. Some of us have bad hips, bad knees. We cater to it. We try and figure out what works and what doesn't. And then it's just, you sort of develop your own style as you go as you learn the others. You'll be like, hey, I'd like that from this style. And then it just turns into your own fighting style.
It all started back in 2012. Isaac and his friends had been sparring with wooden swords when they came across some lightsabers.
These things have a little bit of flex to them, so they're not as painful when you get hit in the hands. We started sparring out in parks. We had kids, so we were doing it later in the night around 9 o'clock or so. People started recording us. They saw and put it up on YouTube. Comic-Con at the time saw it, and they reached out to us and asked us to be their Star Wars presence. So we're like, yeah, we'll put on a show, we'll come, we'll have some fun with it there. And the weirdest thing ever is that people actually wanted to learn from us. And we're like, sure, yeah, we can do this.
Robin Turner also wanted to become one with the group after seeing some saber action in person a couple of years ago.
It's honestly just one of the best ways to get a decent workout. The moves themselves are all really manageable. The teachers will take us aside and help us through anything we're finding difficult.
Okay, everyone get a buddy and get a whoosh zone. Someone can be paired with Dave or Scott. My name is Zyla Webster, and I'm one of the staff instructors here at River City Sabres. Okay, great. Now one more time all together. I've actually been with the group for over 12 years. I was kind of coerced into being here because when I was finishing high school, I needed gym hours, and I was coming up short, and my dad was already doing this and begging me to come out so that we could have some quality father-daughter time, and I was like, no, Dad, that's so uncool. But he got me out, and I never stopped coming ever since then. Woo! Under, yeah, there you go.
While River City Sabres may be inspired by Star Wars, being a fan of the franchise is not required.
Believe it or not, we actually have multiple members of our club who've never even seen a single movie, ever. But the reason why people stay as long as they do is because of the community we've built. It's a really special thing to see people come in from all different generations, walks of life, background, ages, you name it. We would all very, very easily pull up arms for each other. We're a really tight group of friends.
River City Sabres makes an appearance at Comic-Con each year, and this summer the group will be showcasing their skill at the Winnipeg Fringe Fest with an outdoor interactive show. Shanley Vidal, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Super fun story. I mean, their lead there had 2 sabers in hand at one point, fending off 2 different people. I love to hear about people's different hobbies and things they get out to do and being active. If you want to find more information, by the way, on some of their classes, I'll just reiterate here. You can find River City Sabres on social media.
Why is there so much dancing in commercials these days? Why do ad makers hire so many celebrities?
Oh, this is John Hamstock.
And speaking of celebrity, whose voice is that?
Go Bacon! Go Bacon! Go Bacon!
You have questions, Terry O'Reilly has the answers. Ask Terry on Under the Influence, Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on demand on CBC Listen.
Well, some evacuees from Flin Flon are starting to feel a little bit antsy as the evacuation order weighs on them with no set return date, as you've been hearing in the news. We're going to check in with one wildfire evacuee from the northern city of 5,000 people. She's actually going to join us in studio, so that's coming up on the program right after 8. I'm Marcy Marcuso with Dylan Longhurst and Sierra Sanders and Abby Adiyemi behind the glass. Heather Wells in our news center this morning. Thanks for joining all of us here for Information Radio on CBC. Hopefully you're having a great morning. Nice sunshine out there. Don't forget the umbrella, though. Later today, as Abby's been saying, we have a chance of showers here in our forecast for Winnipeg. Well, there's some music out from a local musician named Brett Schultz, and he has a new EP out. He's a singer-songwriter, and you might want to check it out. We're going to give you a little bit of a taste of it. This tune's called Reasons on CBC.
Saturday was pretty dull, I know. Not much to say about it, and I don't need a reason anyway. I don't need to say anything at all. Sometimes I think you're in my life, and other times I cannot tell the difference. You will not give a signal anyway. I gave you no reason to say. Sometimes I can't even reason with myself. I stand and stutter, wondering what will come of it. Maybe someday I will try again to listen to reason again. Yesterday was a sunny afternoon. Birds are gone as summer's blown away. I do not even care that it's gone. I've always preferred it this way.
Winnipeg's Brett Schultz, Reasons. It's the title track from his new EP. And if you want to check him out and support local music, he's going to be playing June 29th at the Dauphin Country Fest. He's playing Altona Sunflower Fest on July 27th. Or if you want to check him out in August, he's going to be out at the Roger Kimley Music Festival in Ericsdale, Manitoba. And we were out that way interviewing them about that festival. So lots of musical talent around the province and tons of places to see our local artists. It is right now 7:48 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 9:90 a.m. on the app and YouTube. Well, next on the show, what role does the color of your skin play when it comes to the quality of care that you receive in an emergency room? There's a new report from Shared Health that suggests a big role. Since 2023, Shared Health has been collecting race-based data from hospitals and medical centers all around Manitoba. Yesterday, they shared some findings. Some of the most serious stats show that Black and Indigenous Manitobans generally spend more time in emergency departments waiting for care. So for context, white patients in need of serious care waited just over 8.5 hours at some major Winnipeg hospitals. In comparison, Black Manitobans in need of serious care spent about 12 hours in the ER. Yesterday, during a news conference, project lead Dr. Marcia Anderson discussed the findings.
I have been immersed in this data for a number of years. I would say little of it surprises me, just because these are patterns we've known about in the literature. It's just hard to act on findings from the literature if you don't have a way to measure local progress. We want to note that as we continue to build the robustness of this data set, we will look at other clinical areas where we are also likely to see gaps in the care that African and or Black, Indigenous, and other racially marginalized people receive. Systemic racism in healthcare is not isolated to emergency departments. Emergency departments are very stressful environments, and the health system is facing many challenges in these areas. It's important that we all see this data as an opportunity to learn and grow together As an immediate step, we have recommended that all emergency department team members be prioritized for participation in Indigenous cultural safety and anti-racism training. The educational interventions are really important, particularly when teams do it as a whole, because it increases their capacity to have conversations about things like racial microaggressions that people might not be aware of, like eye rolling or invalidating. It also can create a culture of safety where any member of the team is more able to intervene and say, hey, what did you mean when you just said that? Or I'm curious what the evidence for that was. And so just want to highlight that it's not just from patients, but that the team interventions are really important.
That was Project Lead Dr. Marcia Anderson speaking yesterday. Now, as you may have heard in the news this morning, Dr. Barry LaValle is CEO of Kiiwetinoong Inanu Minuyawan, which works to improve healthcare for First Nations people in northern Manitoba. He says the new report doesn't go deep enough, and he's actually critical of the study's methodology. So we want to find out more about that and where we go from here. So thank you so much for joining us via Zoom.
Thank you, and good morning.
What are your concerns about the methodology and how they looked at this?
Well, I mean, let me say it first. What isn't apparent with Marcia's release is the number of years that it actually took them to get there. And we need to acknowledge that on Ongomiswin, as well as Shared Health, that this was not a simple step to try and isolate indicators of racism within that system. That must be said in the beginning. Now, I work as CEO for Kiiwetinoong Inanu Minuyawan. I get the cases from all over the North about people who are harmed by stereotyping, meaning that they are harmed physically, psychologically, spiritually by racism that's specific and unique to First Nations people. And in fact, we have death by racism. So, at its first glance, when you look at the data set, that took a long time to get there. But it doesn't, at this point in time, speak to the intensity, the veracity, and the violence that First Nations people can encounter in attempting to seek access to care.
Does it take away because it's, that it looks at all groups? Because I understand one of your criticisms is that sort of that the experience of Indigenous people do you believe that in all studies they should always be separated out because of the long history and, as you said, the complicated nature?
Yeah. I think racism as a general pattern of behavior certainly applies to non-white people, but its level also can apply to LGBTQ community, to people who are disabled, and then experiences I imagine, by women, all colors, can be oppressed within that system. But on a gradient of what really happens, First Nations specific racism is much more operant. And I'll explain why. We did a study in BC where we examined 30,000 episodes actually of stereotyping in a data set, and worked with that. And we found that basically a First Nations person looking as First Nations and or having identifiers as First Nations, when they enter a healthcare system, they enter it in stereotype. And it's very important for people to understand that, meaning that one of the more common stereotypes is that Indigenous or First Nations people drink a lot. Okay, or First Nations people don't care for their health, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, that is operant within the data, but you can't see it yet. And I think go ahead.
I was just going to interject and say, so your bigger concern here is not pushing back that, because some people might say that including the full look at the picture amplifies what's happening with Black patients in our healthcare system. But your view is that overall, it might invalidate, I think has been your language, Indigenous experiences. So you're not saying that we shouldn't be looking at the experience of Black patients in the system, but you feel like that it's just much more complex for Indigenous experiences, and it should be. Do you think it should be always separated out?
It should always be separated out.
Okay.
Now, the experience of other racialized group, of course, is really important. But what we know and see on the ground is that Indigenous-specific racism, when acted on through stereotyping and other mechanisms, can kill and does kill. First Nations patients.
So let's talk about 2018, because with all due respect to any of the results in any study that we've done, I mean, Brian Sinclair died 17 years ago now in a Winnipeg ER waiting for care. At that time, one of the calls to action was having better training and education for people in the medical system, anti-racism education. This morning, we have yet another report that says the exact same thing. What needs to happen to move us past studying the problem and getting to solutions in your view?
That's an excellent answer. So the work that Marsha's doing and her teams is really important for the future. And as we align that with actually narratives of violence, we can actually see better how the system actually acts, sometimes inadvertently, sometimes consciously, to minimize, diminish, and demean the experience of First Nations people seeking care. Okay, that's a fact. But racism for First Nations people differs than other people of color because First Nations people are tied in Canada to the land, whereas settlers who come who are of color, they're not tied to the land. So that the economic analysis around racialization is true, and it is incredibly violent for First Nations people. And we see that in systems like healthcare systems that are made to help all of us. But we don't.
I understand that in reports, you feel that keeping it, as journalists, we like to focus on numbers, wait times, those tangible things. But you actually think that if we're going to change this, instead of having education systems based on numbers and data, we should have more stories of people in reports like this. Why do you think that?
Well, I mean, one of the things, and this is going to sound like a little bit maybe unusual, is that the racism for First Nations people really, I believe, is centered on hatred of First Nations people. Now, people won't like what I'm saying, but it's true. So we've always tried to give a picture to medical providers, nursing providers, researchers, that First Nations people are human. It sounds crazy, but the way we behave towards First Nations people is as if they're not human. So one author calls it the frontier status. Anything can happen in frontier status. There's no law, there's no medicine, there's nothing there. And that's really the kind of covering that we see when a First Nations person can identify in a system. And the data, I'm not going to critique the data because they're the experts. But the data will not tell you yet the depth of what happens in an emergency room when you're sick and people are accusing you of being intoxicated. Brian Sinclair, and I was one of the leads on that particular file, he died by stereotyping. There were really, when we looked, there were no nurses or doctors who committed anything. It was at the beginning in triaging. They didn't even acknowledge his pain or whatever he needed because he wasn't on the sheet for the triage nurse to see. Mm-hmm. So that's how racism looks. It's through stereotyping of First Nations people.
Dr. LaValle, thank you very much for being with us today.
Yeah. Okay, have a good day.
You
Bye-bye.
as well. Bye-bye. Many more perspectives to explore out of what this data has shown us. But it was Dr. Barry LaValle, CEO of Kiiwetinoong Inanu Minuyawan. And you can read more on this story, and you should read the full report. It's at cbc.ca/Manitoba if you want to check that out. Let's go to Heather Wells. She is here with other perspectives on the news and other stories, and headlines.
Good morning. Well, the lone survivor of a mass shooting in Winnipeg's West Broadway area has died. 56-year-old Sean Marco died earlier this month after getting pneumonia for the third time. He had been in hospital since being shot and critically injured in a rooming house on Langside in November 2023. 4 other people were killed. And some wildfire evacuees from northern Manitoba say they're having a hard time adjusting to their temporary home in Niagara Falls, going from a remote community into a concrete jungle. We'll hear about it in our next local news at 8:30.
All right. Thanks very much, Heather. It is partly cloudy, 16 degrees, some rain expected this afternoon in Winnipeg. The commute moving well this Wednesday, and still ahead, we are going to have someone who was evacuated from her city of Flin Flon nearly a month ago. She'll join us in studio to tell us more about what it's like.
Today on Q.
I'm Talia Schlanger sitting in for Tom Power. Joshua Jackson first hit it big over 20 years ago as a teen heartthrob on Dawson's Creek.
Came looking for an apology, you're barking up the wrong tree.
But his latest role relies just on the power of his voice. He'll tell you about narrating a new audio series.
These details are my subconscious's way of telling me I'm dreaming.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
It has been 40 years since the Air India bombing that killed more than 300 people, and Canadian families who lost loved ones are still fighting to make sure this tragedy is remembered as a part of this country's history. That's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. The world is waiting to see if U.S. President Donald Trump will enter the conflict between Israel and Iran. Right now, Israel's military says it is attacking military infrastructure near Tehran. And Iran's ambassador to the United Nations says his country will respond without restraint.
And at any time, at any point, if we come to the conclusion that the United States is directly involved in attacks against Iran, we will start responding to the United States.
The Ayatollah has appeared on state television. He says Iran does not respond well to threats. Our senior international correspondent Margaret Evans is in Jerusalem with the latest.
An Israeli military handout showing one of its fighter jets being prepped for a mission in Iran. More explosions there, recorded overnight. This morning, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, believed to be in hiding, issued a statement saying Iran will show no mercy in its response to Israeli attacks. The headlines in the Middle East continue to speculate as to whether the U.S. President Donald Trump will or won't become directly involved in what Israel describes as a preemptive strike against Iran's nuclear capabilities. Michael Oren is a former Israeli ambassador to Washington.
He likes a winner, and right now we're winning. And as long as we're winning, I think he'll be very supportive.
Israeli cabinet ministers have also been issuing not so subtle hints about regime change as a potential goal.
The Prime Minister several times, not just during this conflict, but in earlier years, has come out and called on the Iranian people to rise up. This is the opportunity to overthrow an oppressive government.
There is no love lost between many Iranians and the Ayatollahs who govern the Islamic Republic with extreme repression. But regional experts, including Renat Mansour, warn against making assumptions.
Do you say, yes, please bomb us if this means democracy and a better life? Haven't we learned that democracy and better development doesn't come through weapons and military solutions?
There is little obvious sign, however, of a diplomatic solution anywhere in sight. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Jerusalem.
The conflict between Israel and Iran is causing infighting among the MAGA faithful. Trump posted on social media a demand for Iran's unconditional surrender. Many people inside his party and beyond are worried about the country getting involved in another conflict. The CBC's Karen Pauls joins me now from Washington. And Karen, what can you tell us?
Well, this conflict is exposing that deep rift between conservatives on military action. Israel doesn't have a weapon capable of taking out Iran's nuclear site, but the U.S. does. Here are Republican Senators Josh Hawley, Rand Paul, Jim Risch, and Tommy Tuberville.
I trust the president on this. And I'm hoping the president will not get involved with the war. This is not our war. This is Iran's war.
Don't panic and hope we all make the right decision when it comes down to it.
The debate got heated when conservative commentator Tucker Carlson interviewed Republican Senator Ted Cruz. He posted a preview on X that's going viral, the full show airing today.
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay,
it's not even. You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
claims anything about the country.
Cruz is accusing Carlson of playing a silly game. In his own social media post, writing, Trump has been fantastic in saying Iran will not get a nuclear weapon. Meanwhile, Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is warning that any U.S. involvement would fracture Trump's MAGA support across the country. She says Americans want cheap gas, groceries, bills and housing, affordable insurance, safe communities, and good education for their children, not going into another foreign war. Meanwhile, the Democrats are still pushing for a diplomatic path. Marcia?
Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Karen Pauls in Washington. CSIS is outlining more details about the ways Canadians were affected by foreign interference last year. Its 2024 report has just been made public. It says CSIS worked to warn private investigators to be on the lookout for hostile state actors. In some cases, those foreign actors were hiring private eyes. They may have pretended to be looking for more information about marital infidelity or fraud, but really, they may have been using that information to harass people at the direction of authoritarian governments. Thousands of Cambodians are marching in their capital. People are in the streets of Phnom Penh showing their support for the government. Cambodia is in a tense border dispute with Thailand. It escalated after a Cambodian soldier was shot and killed at an undemarcated border area between the two countries. People living along that 800-kilometer stretch are preparing for the worst. Patrick Falk reports from Thailand.
At Bandan School in northeastern Thailand, people are reinforcing bunkers to protect children in case border tensions turn critical. The last time serious clashes broke out between Thailand and Cambodia over contested territory was in 2011. Retired teacher Pak Som Chai says he was afraid then as he is now. We just can't predict what will happen, he says. The bunkers are built to protect people not just from bullets but also from mortar bombing. Both sides have pledged to pull back temporarily from contested areas. But Thailand and Cambodia have fought over sovereignty at undemarcated points along the border for more than a century. Cambodia accuses Thai troops of opening fire during a routine patrol late last month, killing one of its soldiers. Thai authorities say it was Cambodian forces that fired first after entering a disputed area. Cambodia has called on the International Court of Justice to resolve the dispute. But Thailand says it doesn't recognize its jurisdiction and wants to settle the matter through bilateral negotiations. Sutien Puchan is the founder of a group that advocates sharing the undemarcated territory and hopes for compromise. If they listen to the villagers, it could solve the problem permanently, he says. Experts say both governments are under pressure from nationalist voices that want to draw clear lines. Retaining the contested territory as no man's land may not be an option. Patrick Falk for CBC News, Thailand.
There is still no trace of the two young siblings who disappeared in Pictou, Nova Scotia. It's now been more than 6 weeks, and police are not saying much other than they have no evidence that suggests the children were abducted. Kayla Hounsell is following the story.
I know somebody out there knows where they're at.
Belinda Gray is pleading for information about the whereabouts of her grandchildren, Lily and Jack Sullivan, 6 and 4 years old, missing from their rural Nova Scotia home since Friday, May 2nd.
Are you able to authorize and start getting some search teams going?
Radio chatter illustrates search crews and first responders mobilizing.
A lot of area to cover. We're out in the sticks here.
For an exhaustive search that would run a total of 12,000 hours. Police say they did find a boot print believed to be child-sized.
It's quite rare. In my career, I've never seen two missing children go at the same time.
The RCMP's Corporal Guillaume Tremblay maintains there is no evidence to suggest the children were abducted. More than 50 people have been interviewed. Gray says her son, the children's biological father, has been questioned 3 times.
A couple of days ago, they had contact and they told him that they weren't looking his way anymore, that everything was fine.
as she clings to cherished keepsakes.
This is Lily's handprint.
She says she does feel the support of the community and beyond.
These are everybody's grandchildren. They're not just mine now.
She says she doesn't have much hope the children will be found alive, and even worries the mystery of what happened to them may never be solved. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Lansdowne Station, Nova Scotia.
This is the Proud Little Warriors from Squamish Nation in British Columbia, a group of 10 and 11-year-old boys who are getting a lot of attention online right now. A clip shows the drummers playing this song for some grizzly bears on Grouse Mountain. Don't worry, the bears were fenced off in their habitat, but they were definitely curious and came to listen. The drummers say it was a very cool moment, one that made them proud to highlight their language and culture. That is the latest national and international news from World Report News Anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
If you haven't yet seen that video, it really is pretty cool when those bears come out. It's quite a moment. And they kept drumming, which is what I thought. I thought I would have stopped drumming in this sort of moment of, wow. Really neat. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us here on CBC this morning. It's Wednesday. It's June 18th, and you're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. Well, coming up this half hour in studio with us, we're going to talk to a evacuee from the city of Flin Flon. We have first talked to her just about a month ago almost when she first evacuated that city, made a drive under scary, ashy orange skies here to the south in safety. But now there's no timeline for when people of Flin Flon will be able to return. So what is that like to live with? Especially when you've got two little ones who are going to be missing school now, because Flin Flon, as you heard yesterday, has also said that school has wrapped up for the year given the situation. So we'll have that interview for you this half hour right here on Information Radio. Next on CBC, though, let's get to headlines that are developing this morning with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, a First Nations health advocate does not approve of the methodology used for a new report on racism in Winnipeg hospital emergency rooms. That report gathered details about the experiences of Indigenous, Black, and South Asian patients. Dr. Barry Lavallee says relying on statistics like these sanitizes the real-life experience of First Nations patients. We're going to hear why he says that coming up. And Progressive Conservative leader Abhi Khan is asking the Premier to call a by-election in Spruce Woods as soon as possible. Khan says Wabkanu is taking too long. The Southwest Manitoba constituency has been without an MLA since last March. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 8:30.
Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Let's get into our weather forecast today with Abby.
Yeah, sunshine in the forecast in the southern part of the province, and if you look up, it's pretty cool up there with some cloudy conditions in the northern regions. Beautiful sunshine greeting most of the regions. 16 degrees right now in Winnipeg. It's sunny outside. The sun will be sticking around through the morning till about the midday period. We'll be expecting thunderstorms and that good chance of showers to come our way. We're heading to a high of 25 today with mostly humidity factored in the southern part of the province. Brandon, Dauphin, Gimli, we're seeing temperatures between 14 and 18 right now. Most of this region seeing partly cloudy skies to sunny conditions. Highs will range from 21 to 26. Now, farther north from the power Flin Flon Thompson, Churchill, it's cooler with more of like an overcast start to the day. Temperatures, we're seeing 4 degrees in Churchill to around 11 degrees in the power. Through the day, we'll see a mix of sun and clouds in the northern part of the province. And temperatures will warm up from 12 to 16 degrees. So it's more like cooler up north and it's clear there, while we have warmer conditions down south with a chance of rain in the forecast and thunderstorms. Right now, Winnipeg, we are at 16. We are heading to a high of 25 today.
All right. Thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
Sarah Sanders is here to talk about what's going on in the morning commute. You haven't had actually a lot of calls, right? It's been pretty quiet.
No, not this morning. I haven't. So it's been pretty quiet on the commuter line this morning. So things are moving smoothly out there. There is still some time left in the show, obviously. So if you have anything that's getting in your way, give me a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
Well, up first this half hour, Noelle Drimmy is one of thousands of wildfire evacuees from Flin Flon. For the last few weeks, her and her family have been living here in Winnipeg, and she says she's happy, they're safe, but she'd, of course, rather be back in her northern city. And it's something she now knows won't be possible for maybe a while. We're still watching all of this. Some nearby communities have ended their evacuation orders, but Flin Flon Mayor George Fontaine says residents from the city need to be patient. I spoke with him yesterday on the show about the decision to keep the evacuation order in place. Here's a bit of what he had to say.
The first thing needed is absolute safety, because we can't bring people back in and be wondering about whether we can still take care of them right now. And then, of course, the second thing is going to be the services that need to be there to be provided for having anybody around there. So last night, our fire chief made a presentation on a YouTube through the city and explained where the fire is, what it's doing, and it is not dormant at this point. It's still active, and there have been a lot of people working on it. So it's not a condition in which you can bring people back yet. So both physically in terms of fire danger and then with the logistics of bringing people back, it's not time. And we have people who are patient. We have people who are very angry. We have people who are running through sad times in their lives. All that sort of thing is going on.
Flin Flon Mayor George Fontaine on our show yesterday. In studio, wildfire evacuee Noelle Drimmy. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
What's this like for you, all of this?
It is a little surreal. And yeah, I echo Mayor George Fontaine's sentiment there that, yeah, we're all in different boats. Like some people are able to stay patient and we're in kind of relatively safe circumstances. And other people are not, right? Some people are still in shelters. Some people are having financial difficulties. And yeah, the patience is waning, I think, for a lot of people.
You and I were talking just off mic about also, what happens with news cycles, so to speak, and attention being given to stories. You know, it starts and it's like, okay, everything's about the fires and people moving. And then slowly now, people are talking about summer holidays and other things. And here you are with your family evacuated. What's that juxtaposition feel like?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was so intense because, we spoke the day pretty much
ago,
that we were evacuated. And so, tensions were really high and there was a lot of uncertainty about our homes and what was going to happen. And we've seen horrible devastation go through our community. We have many friends who have lost their homes of like 50 plus years and just memories gone. So it's been hard to grieve with them. And, we've had lots of community events to sort of keep each other's spirits up. And we're trying to find things to do in the city. And, even my daughter, she's got friends all over the province, right? She's not even with like her core group of friends that she's used to. So it's just been really hard. And so now we're into week 3, week 4 kind of thing. And, we're still here, and every time I sort of say to someone, oh yeah, we're evacuees. And they, sometimes we get a look of like, oh, really? Like still? Like that's still happening? It's like, yeah, it's still happening. So we have nowhere to go.
When you talk about the losses of things, we have understood that there aren't losses in Flin Flon of structures.
That's
so
correct.
Would some of the losses you're talking about be in other communities or outside the community?
Yeah, in Denare Beach. And we do, I think for a lot of us, think of ourselves as a tri-community. Like we're all very connected. We all live and work, like Denare Beach is on Manitoba time, like it's not on Saskatchewan time. So we're very, very connected. We live and work together. Our children go to schools together. We do community events together. So those border lines are pretty invisible for us. So it's very hard to watch those friends and other people's family members lose so much.
They were devastated there.
Absolutely.
On that Saskatchewan side. Yesterday we got an email about a treatment center. And I mean, there's all kinds of different that burned to the ground. There's all kinds of different fundraisers going on.
Yes.
What was your initial reaction when you heard that the evacuation order hadn't been lifted? Like, were you hopeful that maybe it would, or what was your...
Honestly, safety is just top priority. And I've, been trying to stay informed as best we can. And we have been getting very frequent updates from the city. And now those updates are getting even more detailed, which is, I think, what most people are craving. It's like, we want the data. We want to see the pictures. We want to see what's happening on the ground. People are still looking through their doorbell cameras and things like that and sharing those things, like saying it's raining. So we're trying to stay in connection that way, virtually as best we can. And then having these updates like daily is really, really helpful. Because I think that's when people, start to panic and start to worry about these timelines, is when they just don't have enough information.
They don't know why.
The uncertainty is really difficult to deal with.
How old are the kids? Remind us.
2.5 and 6.5.
Oh, so the 6.5-year-old would have been in grade 1, maybe?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so no school. How's that going over?
Yeah, it's difficult. When we first got here, we were pretty gung-ho. I even tried to get her into a school just to maintain that routine. She loves school, and so this was, hard for her. I do have to give a shout out to a local organization called Gym Kids. They opened up half-day programming for evacuee families. So we jumped on that because we had other families that we knew, and so there was some connection there and some familiarity and safety in that. And and my other daughter has gotten to kind of jump in on a couple of sessions, and
literally,
they just love it. And so it's this activity that they wouldn't normally get to do that's been keeping us busy and giving us a bit of routine, but it's still not the same.
No, of course not.
And when we found out that school had been sort of officially done, and I'm a teacher as well, so I knew it was coming, deep down. I was like, we can't possibly go back, within this time frame to finish school, but it still hurt. It was still sad, that June is the fun month, right? That's when you get to do field trips and grad and everyone is excited. And so all of those things, we keep thinking oh, right, we were going to do this, and oh, that project's not going to happen now, and oh, we can't make that. Those things are really hard, those little losses.
It's a piece of your life has moved.
Yeah. And it's, you make plans and then life happens. And I know that, but it's still hard to deal with. And it's hard to watch my little girl deal with that kind of grief. When you're 6.5, losing a month of school, and I mean all of this, you can't even imagine. It's stressful enough as an adult, but yeah. And we are, and Winnipeg's great. We come here often for medical. We do try to do fun things while we're here in the city. But again, she's like, "Is this the longest I've ever been away from home?" And I'm like, "I think so. I think we're getting there."
Where are you guys actually living and staying? Where have you been?
Well, we've been very, very fortunate. My husband's parents have friends here in the city, in the St. Vital area, and so they have been gracious enough to go to their cabin and let my little family of 4 live in their home.
Oh, that's amazing.
Which has been, amazing. Yes.
How important has been maintaining relationships and staying connected with your Flin Flon community been to you?
Very important. And again, some of us are scattered all over the place, so group chats and sort of FaceTime, and that's the only way we get to see each other. But we have had some sort of more big community events. There's been some really great leaders organizing things. So we had a group meeting at the Dakota Center where we just had, food and games, and it gave the kids a chance to, play at a gym again, and there was bouncy castles and things like that. But again, that sort of community grief where people were, mourning the loss of their homes and lots of hugging and things like that.
So let me ask you about other losses. Because earlier this morning, the Manterio Trail, which is part of another fire in the Whiteshell, and it's actually closed now indefinitely because of wildfire damage and challenges. And people were talking about what that meant to them. If you live north, and for people that have never been north in this province, go north. It's stunning. I mean, a lot of why people live there, I'm not sure why you landed in Flin Flon, but I mean, outside of Flin Flon and in those wild areas, I mean, it's beautiful, and there's so much to do, and most people will either hike or fish or camp or go on trails. And I was just thinking about the losses. What are you worried about in terms of the natural environment where in the part of Manitoba you're from?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I am not a native Manitoban. I am from Southern Ontario, and I got a job in Flin Flon 15 years ago.
That's right.
And I never looked back. I love it there. I choose to live there. And even just we have crown land out the back of our property. It's full of blueberries and beautiful rock, and I take photos back there all the time, and I don't drive, so I get to walk around a lot in our little town, and beyond that, the lakes and the
it's all right there,
and the hiking, it's all right there, and it is stunning. And to know that when we go back, so much of it is going to be changed is going to be really difficult.
Yeah. What would your message be to other evacuees who right now might be feeling antsy?
Yeah, I know. I'm sure they've heard it. It's be patient and hang in there. All those sentiments, they sound pretty cliche, but that's what we have to do. We have to stick together. We have to be kind to each other. We have to listen to each other. Talking about it really does help. And I know some people are sort of posting links to mental health services. If you can link up with someone, even just to go for a walk, go for a coffee, just and cry or anything like that. It is really helpful, even though it feels, the solution seems so far away. But yeah, just connect with people.
Good luck the rest of the way. We certainly can't wait till we do an interview with you and you're back at home. But while you're here in Winnipeg, I hope you continue to feel welcomed and you find things, to do with the family that makes them feel good too. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Nice to see you in person.
Thank you. You too.
That's Noelle Jeremy. She's a wildfire evacuee from the city of Flin Flon. Remember, there's 5,000 people in that city, and they right now are scattered all across southern Manitoba, including here in Winnipeg.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes our world. Staying on top of stories around the globe. And connected close to home. It's news you can trust. Delivered when you want and where you want. On Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1. Local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
Whether you're hanging out or out on the move, stay in the know with CBC Listen. The cost of living with Paul Havershrud goes beyond facts and figures.
Real estate is the 800-pound gorilla of Canada's economy.
And What on Earth with Laura Lynch explores the climate change crisis, problems and solutions.
What happened that made you start to think and see climate change differently?
The cost of living and What on Earth. Available now on CBC Listen.
It is 8:25 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 9:90 a.m. on the app and YouTube. Thanks for being with us this morning. It is a partly cloudy 18. Brandon's partly cloudy 17. Thompson's mostly cloudy and 8 degrees. No rain in Thompson today, just a mix of sun and cloud, a high 14. But in Winnipeg and Brandon, we are expecting late this morning and an early afternoon a chance of showers and might even see a thunderstorm today in Winnipeg. Hopefully that lightning will stay away from any of the fire-affected regions. Well, next on the show, as you've been hearing in the news, you likely now know that the 3-day G7 summit has wrapped up. It saw world leaders gather in Kananaskis, Alberta. It is now over. But on the last day, delegates from non-G7 countries were invited to participate in the meetings. Prime Minister Mark Carney invited representatives from India, Brazil, South Korea, South Africa, Ukraine, Mexico, Australia, and NATO, World Bank, and the UN. And I just wanted to touch this for a moment on the show because this is Mark Carney talking about why he did this and kicking off those discussions.
Partners in security, partners of the G7, partners in the future of energy and beyond. We have a very important agenda together, but it's a sign of the maturity, I think, of the G7 that we come together for common problems in energy security, common opportunities in new technologies from information technologies, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, the need to have reliable supplies, that this table can produce reliable supplies in critical minerals for the future, and ways to find partnership for true development and, under your control, President Lula, sustainable development and how we'll work together. So thank you for coming to Canada. Thank you for coming to this G7. Canada is your partner in all these aspects, and we're all stronger together. So on a beaucoup à faire.
So we have a lot to do.
I thank you, the members of the media, for your presence and for your amplification of the progress that we're going to make together. And with that, we are going to get to work. Alors, merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
So that, of course, is the announcer who was handling the media yesterday, as Mark Carney was addressing people, speaking from the G7 summit in Alberta on Tuesday. Now that is now wrapped, but if you want to read some of the analysis about whether or not they achieved some of the goals that the Prime Minister was outlining there, please go to cbc.ca. We've been having interviews about it all morning, also talking about the trade and the tariffs and what happened at the G7 after Donald Trump left and what those implications are left for Canada. Next on the show, it is just coming up to 8:30, which means that Marjorie Dalhouse, the host of CBC's Radio Noon, has popped in to tell us what's coming up on the call-in portion of her show today. Good morning.
Hi, Marcy. Well, it is grad season, and we want to hear stories. I mean, grads sacrifice so much. They work so hard to get to where they are. We have a special guest today. Her name is Jennifer Bredham. She went through adversity. She broke her back. She was bedridden but she just graduated from the University of Manitoba. She's got such an inspiring story. So we want to hear from you. Do you have a story, a grad story of someone who has persevered, worked hard? Maybe there's a grad that you want to give a shout out to. We want to hear from you today on Radio Noon, so call in after 12:30. Also excited to hear a little bit more about Jennifer's story because it absolutely is so inspirational, Marcy.
Wow, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
You always wonder what you'll do if you're in that moment, right? Like where something extreme happens to you. And when people, have these stories of perseverance, I'm always just like, wow, I hope I would be that person should something happen. So I can't wait to hear it.
And we want to hear stories too of perseverance. Maybe you know someone who fought through a lot to get to where they are. Let's just celebrate people for the hard work that they've put in to get to where they are.
It's all about grads between 12:30 and 1. Now, when Marge came in studio, full disclosure, she was teasing me because earlier this morning, if you heard in the show, I was talking about how I went to Stonewall yesterday, and I was going to get something at the Home Hardware, and I got lost in town. Like, how do you get lost in Stonewall?
It can happen, Marcy. I've gotten lost in places like Selkirk and Steinbach. Yes, I have.
They're a lot bigger, though, than Stonewall. And I should know this. I reported in rural Manitoba for years. You just head for the main street, and usually you're okay. So I was laughing. I pulled over literally 3 times. People are probably pointing at me like, who is that? Is that Marcy Marcus from CBC?
You just always got to look for the main street, right?
I know, which I didn't do yesterday. But I love the stores that you kind of now only find in small town Manitoba.
I love them.
Home Hardware is one of them, actually.
Home Hardware is amazing. I've found some gadgets there that I haven't been able to find. I know it's a little bit of a drive, but it's so worth it.
What are some of the other ones? There's Chicken Chefs, right?
I love Chicken Chef. So good outside of the city. Yeah. Shout out to Winkler Morden for your Chicken Chefs. They're
See?
Good.
Yeah, we know. We've been to your towns. All right, thanks a lot, Mark.
Thanks, Marcy.
Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, mostly sunny. It's 18 degrees. The sunshine, though, is going to become a mostly cloudy afternoon with a good chance of showers, maybe even a thunderstorm today. A high this afternoon of 25. The lone survivor of a mass shooting in Winnipeg's West Broadway area is now dead. 56-year-old Sean Marco died earlier this month after getting pneumonia for a 3rd time. He had been in hospital since being shot and critically injured in a rooming house on Langside in November 2023. 4 other people were killed. The man accused of shooting Marco was charged with attempted murder. Melissa Marco says that charge should be upgraded now that her brother is dead.
My brother's not here, so if it's attempted murder, he would still be alive. To me, that's murder. He's gone. He wouldn't have been in that hospital had he not been shot. So he should have the same charge.
34-year-old Jamie Randy Felix is also charged with 4 counts of second-degree murder. The Manitoba Prosecution Service says any decisions in relation to what happened to Sean Marco will only be made after all relevant evidence is obtained and reviewed. A First Nations health advocate does not approve of the methodology used for a new report on racism in Winnipeg hospital emergency rooms. The report gathered details on the experiences of Indigenous, Black, and South Asian patients. Dr. Barry LaValle at Kiiwetinoong Ininu Minayawan says relying on statistics sanitizes the real-life experience of First Nations patients.
By bringing that across to other people, you actually minimize and you conceal in data that, it's not only First Nations people experiencing racism, it's Black people, it's brown people, etc. So it might not be as bad as you think.
LaValle says First Nations-specific racism in Canada is unique. The study found ER waits in Winnipeg for Indigenous, African, or Black people are often longer than they are for white patients. Some Manitoba wildfire evacuees say their temporary home in Niagara Falls have left them feeling culture shock. Ashley Charlotte is a community and wellness worker who fled Puckatawagan Cree Nation 2 weeks ago. She says some of her fellow evacuees are having a hard time being cut off from familiar surroundings. But even in the concrete jungle, she says they find comfort being close to Niagara Falls.
People find comfort in the falls because we are surrounded by water
And I think if we were put anywhere else other than beside the water or falls, there would be a lot of like displaced people. And I think the falls give comfort because once you see the falls, you kind of feel okay inside because we're people of the land. You know, we don't grow up in cities.
Charlotte says a network of people are working to make sure everyone has the support they need in Niagara Falls. The area has welcomed about 3,000 evacuees from northern Manitoba and Ontario over the past couple of weeks. Progressive Conservative leader Abhi Khan is asking Premier Wab Kinew to call a by-election in Spruce Woods as soon as possible. Khan says Kinew is taking too long. The Southwest Manitoba constituency has been without an MLA since March. That is when former PC MLA Grant Jackson resigned to run federally. Khan notes Kinew called by-elections in Tuxedo and Transcona more quickly after those seats became vacant.
He has a duty, regardless of how busy he is, to represent all Manitobans, whether it's in a Progressive Conservative held traditional riding or a NDP riding. All Manitobans deserve to have a right in the legislature. He is depriving Manitobans of that.
A by-election must be held in the constituency by September 24th. The Manitoba government has signed an agreement to support reconstruction efforts for part of Ukraine. Premier Wab Kinew made the announcement in Calgary last night as the nearby G7 Leaders Summit wrapped up. Kinew had been scheduled to meet with Ukraine's visiting president, but Volodymyr Zelensky left early to tend to deadly new Russian attacks on Kyiv and Odessa. Kinew signed a memorandum of understanding to support southern Kherson's partly occupied region in areas including agriculture and electricity. The premier says Manitoba has welcomed 30,000 Ukrainians since the Russian invasion began in 2022. Well, the Florida Panthers are bringing home the Stanley Cup for a second straight year, a huge disappointment for Oilers fans and anyone who wanted Lord Stanley back on this side of the border.
It was pretty devastating.
Feels like a death in the family. Very depressing. It hurts really bad. Second year in a row, but I mean, it's okay. I mean, we'll come back. McDavid's going to re-sign. I mean, that's what we're hoping anyways.
Florida was the better team. You know, everything Edmonton was able to do, Florida was able to do, but better. They just played a better game, honestly. That's all there really is to it.
The Panthers beat Edmonton 5-1, taking that series in 6 games. Oilers coach Chris Knobloch says there is no silver lining. It's going to hurt for a while. You can find more news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
I wish it would have been a better game, too.
Yeah.
I mean, the Panthers were amazing, but the Oilers looked like just a little bit slow and defeated. I mean, what do I know about playing all that hockey and then coming to that game? But you kind of wish they would have gone out at least with a bit more fight, or just a game that happened to be a little bit more competitive, because it was a little bit of, it was pretty lopsided last night.
Well, and not to take away from Florida, because they were a strong team, and there's talk now of dynasty, right?
Yeah. We will see. All right. Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
The last look at our morning commute. Here's Sierra.
Good morning. Quiet on the commuter line this morning, but an update on the highways. Highway 315 from the south entrance of Nopaming Provincial Park and Tanko Mine Road to Davidson Lake is now reopened. So there are some roads reopening in Nopaming Park. There are still some closures, and you can head to Manitoba 511 to keep up to date with those closures. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Sierra. Abby.
Sunshine in the south, some clouds and cooler conditions in the northern part of the province. The south seeing temperatures near 19 right now, warming to 25. We do have showers in the forecast, and Winnipeg right now we are at 18 degrees.
Abby Adeyemi, Dylan Longhurst, Sierra Sanders, our amazing live crew this morning on the show. Thank you, guys. Thanks to our news department, Joni Nicolo, Megan Ketchison, and Heather Wells this morning. Community reporter Shanley Vidal, and associate producers Chidi Akuma, Carmen Ponto, and Jim Agapito, as well as producers Nellie Gonzalez and Leif Larson. That's all for today, folks. Take care. Talk to you tomorrow.